Hello, everybody. As you can see, we're missing a lot of people tonight, but hold on. We got something really special, and if you guys have been missing the RPG Imaginarium, I think this is going to scratch the itch a little bit. First of all, how you doing, Josh?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I am doing fantastic. So let me tell you what we've got going on. All right. There is an infamous short fantasy novella called The Eye of Argon. It is so bad, so widely considered the most appalling piece of fantasy literature ever conceived, so utterly inundated with pure, unfiltered cringe, that it actually spawned its own party game at like science fiction and fantasy conventions. And what'll happen is a lot of fans will get together and they'll read the story. And the rules are, all right, you have to read it dramatically. You read it as it is written, not as you think he intended it. So you have to read phonetically. And if you laugh, you pass it on. According to the Wikipedia article, getting through about 2/3 of a page is considered a massive achievement. Now, we're not the first people to do this. Yahtzee Croshaw has done this. Terrible Writing Advice has done that, and they're both fantastic. I encourage you to look for those. But we are going to do ours. You know, we're the literary nerds of CAFCON. I'm a writer. Josh is an actual respected, accredited literary scholar. So,
I wouldn't put it like that.
how would you put it?
I have my English degree.
That's more than I've got. So, I know the story. All right by now. Josh has never read this. Josh has no idea what he's in for. This is going to be good.
I have an idea. I've heard of it. But I have my bottle of Grand Marnier to help me through this.
I couldn't find any good dark beer in the fridge, so I don't always do dramatic readings. But when I do. All right, I think you should kick us off here, Josh.
All right. I should point out I can see the chapter of contents, and I see that there are fractional chapters.
Yeah, the full ones aren't that long. By the way, this story is freely available online, so if anyone wants to follow along with us, at great risk to personal sanity, you can Google it.
All right. Chapter 1. The weather-beaten trail wound ahead into the dust-racked climes of the barren land which dominates large portions of the Norgolian Empire. Age-worn hoofprints smothered by the sifting sands of time shone dully against the dust-splattered crust of earth. The tireless sun cast its parching rays of incandescence from overhead, halfway through its daily revolution. Small rodents scampered about, occupying themselves in the daily accomplishments of their dismal lives. Dust sprayed over 3 heaving mounts in blinding clouds, while they bore the burdensome cargoes of their struggled overseers. Perhaps to embrace your creators in the Stygian haunts of hell, barbarian, gasped the first soldier. Only after you have kissed the fleeting stead of death, wretch, returned Grignr. A sweeping blade of flashing steel riveted from the massive barbarian's hide-enameled shield, as his rippling right arm thrust forth, sending a steel-shod blade to the hilt of the soldier's vital organs. The disemboweled mercenary crumpled from his saddle and sank to the clouded sward, sprinkling the parched dust with crimson droplets of escaping life fluid.
Hey, congratulations, Imp.
The enthused barbarian swiveled around, a shock of fiery red hair tossing robustly in the humid air currents as he faced the attack of the defeated soldier's fellow in arms. Damn you, barbarian! I'm sorry, there's no explanation on that. Damn you, barbarian! Shrieked the soldier as he observed his comrade in death. What happens if you laugh instead of I laugh?
I can laugh all I want. You're allowed to laugh. I'm allowed to laugh. We can both make commentary. This is supposed to be really dumb, but as you were reading, I started realizing I forgot how many terrible stories you've actually read. So we might be playing this on hard mode.
A gleaming scimitar smote a heavy blow against the renegade's spiked helmet, breaking a heavy cloud over the accordion's misting brain. Shaking off the effects of the pounding blow to his head, Grignr brought down his scarlet-streaked edge against the soldier's crudely forged hauberk, clanging harmlessly to the left side of his opponent. The soldier's steed whinnied as he directed the horse back from the driving blade of the barbarian. Grignr, unleashed his mount forward as the hoarsely piercing battle cry of his wilderness-bred race resounded from his grinding lungs. A twirling blade bounded harmlessly from the mighty thief's buckler as his rolling right arm cleft upward, sending a foot of blinding steel ripping through the Cimmerian's exposed gullet. This asshole. Spelled Cimmerian Simarin, as if this isn't Conan the Barbarian, this isn't Samaria of Hyperborea.
This is legally distinct, I will have you know.
A gasping gurgle from the soldier's writhing mouth as he tumbled into the golden sand at his feet and wormed agonizingly in his deathbed.
Just wait, Mazzy, I don't think you'll be disappointed.
Grignir's emerald green orbs glared lustfully at the wallowing soldier struggling before his chestnut-swirled mount. His scowling voice reverberated over the dying form in a tone of mocking mirth. You city-bred dogs should learn not to antagonize your better. Reining his weary mount ahead, Grignir, not capitalized, resumed his journey to the Norigolian city of Gorzam, hoping to discover wine, women, and adventure to boil the wild blood coursing through the savage veins. The trek to Gorzam was forced upon Grignir when the soldiers of Kryn were leashed upon him by a faithless concubine he had wooed. His scandalous activities throughout the Cimmerian city had unleashed throngs of havoc and uproar amongst its refined partitions, leading them to tack a heavy reward over his head. He had barely managed to escape through the entrance of the inn he had been guzzling in, as a squad of soldiers pounced upon him. After spilling a spout of blood from the leader of the mercenaries as he dismembered one of the officer's arms, he retreated to his mount to make his way towards Gorzam, rumored to contain hordes of plunder and many young wenches for any man who had the backbone to wrest them away.
If you want to tag out at any time, I'll take over. Again, I didn't realize how good you'd be at this, so it was not my intention to rope you into doing another dramatic reading.
No, it's okay. You have to remember, I've read student papers as well.
Oh dear God, tell us.
No, I'm used to looking over people's grammatical errors. But now I'm trying to purposefully read them. Also, just like a bit of criticism, like he keeps saying these places like we're supposed to know where they are.
I think I will give him props because in 1970s I think the info dump was still like the industry standard. So this guy gives us nothing to work with. He's technically pushing the envelope a little bit.
He also really loves the adverbs and just adjectives.
This man, it was written by, I believe his name is Jim Ties, is how it's pronounced, by the way. Credit where credit is due, of course. He is the man that single-handedly taught me that you can explain something so much to the point where somebody has no idea what the fuck is going on. Also, I have a slight amount of PTSD because now I'm afraid to use adverbs ever at all.
Unless you're Lovecraft, don't do it too much. And even if you're Lovecraft, you could probably cut back a little bit.
At least the racist ones.
Don't name your cat like Lovecraft does. Anyways, I'm gonna tap out. You can read the second chapter now.
Oh fuck! All right. Oh, this is where it gets hard. Arriving after dusk in Gorzam, Grignir descended down a dismal alley, reining his horse before a beaten tavern. The red-haired giant strode into the dimly lit hostelry reeking of foul odors and cheap wine. The air was heavy with choking fumes, spewing from smoldering torches, encased within Theoden's earthen-packed walls. Tables were cluttered with groups of drunken thieves and cutthroats tossing dice or making love to willing prostitutes. How bad do you have
this?
Go ahead.
This reminds me of that Barbarian short, like the parody one that Adult Swim did.
Oh, shit! I know the one you're talking about. Korgoth of Barbaria.
Where just people are just fucking prostitutes in the middle of the inn.
Yeah. I have a Dos Equis tonight. Josh is drinking something much classier.
Grand Marnier.
It's French, it has to be.
I believe you pronounce it. It's orange liqueur.
Eyeing a slender female crouched alone at a nearby bench, Grignir advanced, wishing to wholesomely occupy his time. The flickering torches cast weird shafts of luminescence dancing over the half-naked harlot of his choice, her stringy orchid twines of hair swaying gracefully over the lithe, opaque nose as she raised a half-drained mug to her pale red lips. I almost broke there on lithe, opaque nose. Glancing upward, the alluring complexion noted the stalwart giant as he rapidly approached. A faint glimmer sparked from the pair of deep blue ovals of the amorous female as she motioned toward Grignir, enticing him to join her. The barbarian seated himself upon a stool at the wench's side, exposing his body naked save for a loincloth, brandishing a long steel broadsword, an iron-spiraled battle helmet, and thick leather sandals to her unobstructed view.
Which longsword was that? The one between his legs or the one at his hip?
Aha! Well, no, the one between his legs is a truncheon. He's got enough girth. This is a Mary Sue fantasy hero. Thou hast need to occupy your time, barbarian, questioned the female. Only if something worth offering is within my reach, stated Grignir as his hands crept to embrace the tempting female, who welcomed them with open willingness. From where do you come, barbarian, and by what are you called? Gasped the complying wench, as Grignir smothered her lips with the blazing touch of his flaming mouth. He's got a couple of sores, I see. The engrossed titan ignored the queries of the inquisitive female, pulling her towards him and crushing her sagging nipples to his yearning chest. Without struggle, she... Fuck! God damn it, I broke first, but I got it past the 2/3 mark. Open willingness.
I will pick up. I'll start over from the paragraph.
Okay.
The engrossed titan ignored the queries of the inquisitive female, pulling her towards him and crushing her sagging nipples in his yearning chest. Without struggle, she gave in, winding her soft arms around the harshly bronzed hide of Grignir, corded shoulder blades, as his calloused hands caressed her firm, protruding bust. You make love well, wench, admitted Grignir as he reached for the vessel of potent wine his charge had been quaffing. So this is possibly written by a virgin if grabbing somebody's nipples and putting them to your own nipples is what you consider making love.
He was 16 at the time this was... Either at the time he wrote this or at the time it was published. It was published in a small, fanzine in the Ozark in, 70-something.
Good lord. Just like, yes, twisting nipples, that is how one has sex. A flying foot caught the mug Grignir had taken hold of, sending its blood-red contents sloshing over a flickering crescent, leashing tongues of bright orange flame to the foot-trodden floor. Remove yourself, sirrah! The wench belongs to me! Blabbered a drunken soldier, too far consumed by the influences of his virile brew to take note of the superior size of his adversary. Grignir lithely bounded from the startled...
That says lithely, sir. Pronounce it right.
Grignir lithely bounded from the startled female, his face lit up to an ashen red ferocity, his eyes locked in a searing feral blaze toward the swaying soldier. To hell with you, braggart, bellowed the angered accordion, as he hefted his finely owned broadsword. The staggering soldier clumsily reached towards the pommel of his dangling sword, but before his hands ever touched the oaken hilt a silvered flash was slicing the heavy air. The thews of the savage's lashing right arm bulged from the glistening bronzed hide as his blade bit deeply into the soldier's neck, lopping off the confused head of his senseless tormentor.
You know what I always wondered about barbarian fiction?
What?
If they've got enough metallurgy to have finely honed broadswords, where the fuck is the armor?
You can't show off your abs if you're wearing armor, Chaz. You've seen 300.
Ah, yes, of course.
But the way that he phrased that, the man reached towards the pommel of the dangling sword. It's like he was gripping it by he's like, oh, let me grab it with my fingertips.
I got this.
No wonder he got his neck cut off. With a nauseating thud, the severed oval toppled to the floor as the segregated torso of Grignir's bovine antagonist swayed, then collapsed in a pool of swirled crimson. You can tell he doesn't know which words he's using sometimes. I don't think he correctly knew what he was doing with the word bovine there.
He's got thesaurus-itis, where, because you know, a lot of times on thesaurus they'll put stuff that's kind of the same, but not really. It's off by shades. Like, it's always been readily apparent when somebody who doesn't use certain words in regular usage decides to employ a thesaurus to sound smart, and this guy has got it in spades. But yeah, it's there was a quote, I forget who it was, it's on the Wikipedia article, but a literary critic said he had a gift for choosing the wrong word and gloriously misapplying it.
In the confusion, the soldiers' fellows confronted Grignir with unsheathed cutlasses directed towards the latter's scowling makeup.
He drew a frowny face on in lipstick.
Well, I'm gonna assume he's just wearing full-blown, like, Gene Simmons kiss makeup. Or just like, just the singer from Sisters of Mercy. The slut should have picked his quarry more carefully, wrote the victor.
Ah, you laughed.
Just, he's calling the soldier he killed a slut. Like, the slut should have picked his quarry more carefully. The whore. Sleeping with women. Willy-nilly.
The slut should have picked his quarry more carefully, roared the victor in a mocking baritone growl. That's like 4 different things. Hang on, I need to parse that. The slut should have picked his quarry more carefully, roared the victor in a mocking baritone growl as he wiped his dripping blade on the prostrate form and returned it to its scabbard. The fool should have shown more prudence. However, you shall rue your actions while rotting in the pits, stated one of the sprawled soldier's comrades. Grignir's hand began to remove his blade from its leather housing, but retarded the motion in face of the blades waving before his face. Dismiss your hand from the hilt, barbarian, or you shall find a foot of steel sheathed in your gizzard. Grignir weighed his position. What happened?
Gizzard. Only chickens have gizzards. Men don't have gizzards.
Do you want to count that as me fucking up? Otherwise, I'll keep going.
No, that was me laughing, or you laughing because I was laughing.
Okay. Dismiss your hand from the hilt, barbarian, or you shall find a foot of steel sheathed in your gizzard. Grignir weighed his position, observing his plight, whereupon he took the soldier's advice as the only logical choice. Barbarians are often highly logical people. To attempt to hack his way from his present predicament could only warrant certain death. He was of no mind to bring upon his own demise if an alternate path presented itself. The will to necessitate his life forced him to yield to the superior force in hopes of a moment of carlessness, upon later the part of his captors in which he could effect a more plausible means of escape. You may steady your arms, I will go without a struggle. Your decision is a wise one, yet perhaps you would have been better off had you forced death. The soldier's mouth wrinkled into a sadistic grin of knowing mirth as he prodded his prisoner on with his sword point. If you want to say something, just talk over me. I'll start the fuck over, man.
You may steady your arms. I will go without struggle, yes. Keep your arms in the sword position. That's basically what he said.
After an indiscriminate period of marching through slinking alleyways and dim, moonlighted streets, the procession confronted a massive seraglio. The palace area was surrounded by an iron grating with a lush garden upon all sides. The group was admitted through the gilded gateway, and Grignir was led along a stone pathway bordered by plush vegetation, lustfully enhanced by the moon's shimmering rays. Just heaving vegetation. Sweating with wanting, huh?
Oh, just sexy vegetation. It's all, what do you call them? They're all sexy monster girls in this garden.
Perhaps Jim Ties was more of an innovator than we had originally imagined. Upon reaching the palace, the group was granted entrance, and after several minutes of explanation led through several winding corridors to a richly draped chamber. Confronting the group was a short, stocky man seated upon a golden throne. Tapestries of richly draped regal blue silk covered all walls of the chamber, while the steps leading to the throne were plated with sparkling white ivory. The man upon the throne had a naked wench seated at each of his arms, and a trusted advisor seated in back of him, just riding fucking piggyback on his shoulders. At each cronwer, the chamber, a guard stood at attention with upraised pikes supported in their hands, golden chainmail adorning their torsos and barred helmets, emitting scarlet plumes and shrouding their heads. The man rose from his throne to the dais surrounding it. His plush turquoise robe dangled loosely from his chunky frame. The soldiers surrounding Grignir fell to their knees with heads bowed to the stone masonry of the floor, in fearful dignity to their sovereign, liege.
I thought it was marble, not stone.
It's the same thing. The thesaurus said so. Explain the purpose of this intrusion upon my chateau. Your serenity, resplendent in noble grandeur, we have brought this yokel before you. Open parentheses. At least I can deal with grammar. At least get the syntax, dude. Come on.
Well, it's just the use of the word yokel just sticks out so much.
Right.
Because it's like, yes, somewhat medieval fantasy. You yokel.
This fucking hillbilly. All right, man, you're up.
Your serenity, resplendent in noble grandeur, we have brought this yokel before you. The soldier gestured toward Grignir, for the redress of your all-knowing wisdom in judgment regarding his fate. Down on your knees, lout, and pay proper homage to your sovereign, commanded the pudgy noble of Grignir. That's a little confusing. It's like saying the pudgy noble is of Grignir. By the surly beard of Mrfk, Grignir scowled the massive barbarian. You dare to deal this blasphemous act to me? You are indeed brave, stranger, yet your valor smacks of foolishness. I find you to be the only fool sitting upon your pompous throne, enhancing the rolling flabs of your belly in the midst of your elaborate luxuriand. The soldier standing at Grignir's side smote him heavily in his face with the flat of his sword, cutting short the harsh words and knocking his battered helmet to the masonry with an echoing clang.
Echo dashing.
Yeah, echo dashing clang. The paunchy noble's sagging round face flushed suddenly pale, then hastily lit up into a lustrous cherry-red radiance. His lips trembled with the malicious rage while emitting a muffled, sibilant gibberish. His sagging flabs rolled like a tub of upset jelly, then compressed as he sucked in his gut in an attempt to conceal his softness.
I'm trying to imagine what upset jelly looks like. I'm just imagining just a jar of pissed-off grape. Just shaking.
A shaking plateful of jelly. The prince regained his statue, then spoke to the soldiers surrounding Grignir, his face conforming to an ugly expression of sadistic humor. Take this uncouth heathen to the vault of misery, and be sure that his agonies are long and drawn out before death can release him. As you wish, sire. Your command shall be heeded immediately, answered the soldier on the right of Grignir, as he stared into the barbarian's seemingly unaffected face. The advisor seated in the back of the noble slowly rose and advanced to the side of his master, motioning the wenches seated at his sides to remove themselves. He lowered his head and whispered to the noble. Eminence, the punishment you have decreed will cause much misery to this scum, yet it will only last a short time. Then release him to a land beyond the sufferings of the human body. Why not mellow him in one of the subterranean vaults for a few days, then send him to life labor in one of your buried mines? To one such as he, a life spent in the confinement of the Stygian pits will be infinitely more appropriate and lasting torture. Hello, Glenn.
Glenn Couch, how's it going, buddy?
Yeah, there's a lot of double sexual entendres here that this 16-year-old is probably missing.
Oh, no, there isn't.
Oh. Alright, where did I leave off? Okay. The noble cupped his drooping double chin in the folds of his briming palm, meditating for a moment upon the rationality of the counselor's words. Hey, they can't hear that, but it's counselors with an apostrophe, then words with an apostrophe. I'm not sure what the words are possessing.
The words are possessing the rationality of the counselor?
then raised his shaggy brown eyebrows and turned them toward the advisor, eyes aglow. As always, Agathon, you speak with great wisdom. Your words ring of great knowledge concerning the nature of one as he, saith the king. Is he a king or a prince?
He's a king, he's a prince, he's a noble, he's probably the magistrate. He's got a lot of jobs. Look, the economy in Norgolia is just a bitch right now, alright? Hard times for everybody.
The noble turned toward the prisoner with a noticeable shimmer reflecting in his frog-like eyes, and his eyes contorting to a greasy grin. I have decided to void my previous decree. The prisoner shall be removed to one of the palace's underground vaults. There he shall stay until I have decided that he has sufficiently simmered, whereupon he is to be allowed to spend the remainder of his days at labor in one of my mines. Yes, simmered, like a hot soup. Upon hearing this, Grignir realized that his fate would be far less merciful than death to one such as he, who is used to roaming the countryside at will. A life of confinement would be more than his body and mind could stand up to. This type of life would be immeasurably worse than death. I shall never understand the ways if-your-tisted civilization. I simply defend my honor and condemn to life confinement by a pig who sits on his royal ass wooing whores and knows nothing of the affairs of the land he imagines to rule, lectures Grignir. Enough of this. Away with the slut before I lose my control.
That really gets you, doesn't it?
He does not know how to use the word slut. Unless it means something in Norgonia or wherever this is.
You are immediately giving him too much credit.
It's just the whole, you sit there telling me what to do while wooing whores, which I was doing right before this. You know nothing of the affairs of the land, where I go about just murdering people for insulting me.
Seeing the peril of his position, Grignir searched for an opening. Crushing... Oh, I know... You know what? Never mind. I see what you mean about the double entendre. Crushing prudence to the sward, he plowed into the soldier at his left arm, taking hold of his sword, and bounding to the dais supporting the prince before the startled guards could regain their composure. Agathon leaped Grignir and his sire, jumped over the both of them. Fuck, did I laugh or not? You be the judge.
I'll count that as a laugh. I'll relieve you. Agathon leaped Grignir and his sire.
Are you sure it's a long ways towards the next slut?
I'm sure I'll find something to laugh at.
Okay, go ahead.
Agathon leaped Grignir and his sire, but found a sword blade permeating the length of his ribs before he could lose his weapon. The counselor slumped to his knees as Grignir slid his crimsoned blade from Agathon's ribcage. That one didn't have any vowels in it. The fat prince stood undulating in insurmountable fear before the edge of the fiery-maned comet, his flabs of jellied blubber pulsating to and fro in ripples of flowing terror. I laughed.
Just evanescing away into scaredness.
Just jiggling in fear.
Just a terrified Dorito the Hut. Where is your wisdom and power now, your majesty? Growled Grignir. The prince went rigid as Grignir discerned him glazing over his shoulder. He swived to note the cause of the noble's attention, raised his sword over his head, and prepared to leash a vicious downward cleft. Very, very musical sword maneuver, the downward cleft. But fell short as the haft of a steel-rimed pike clashed against his unguarded skull. Then, blackness and solitude, silence enshrouding and ever peaceful reigned supreme. Before me, sirrah! Before me as always! Ha ha ha! Nobly cackled. Oh my god. Dude, the next time nobody shows up, we should do My Immortal. Consciousness returned to Grignir in stigmatic pools as his mind gradually cleared of the cobwebs cluttering its inner recesses, yet the Stygian cloud of charcoal ebony remained. an incompatible shield of blackness enhanced by the bleak absence of sound.
Stigmatic is my favorite goth industrial band, by the way.
I will have to check them out. I did not know about them.
I was making a joke.
Then I didn't get it, and I'm a dum-dum.
That just proves that Stigmatic sounds like a goth industrial.
100%. Grignar's muddled brain reeled from the shock of the blow he had received to the base of the skull. The events leading to his predicament were slow to filter back to him. He dickered with the notion. Is that a real word?
I don't think so.
I always assumed dickered meant like dicking around, but oh, whatever. Okay. He dickered.
I was gonna say I'm sure it was a word in the 70s in the Midwest.
Why not? He dickered with the notion that he was dead and had descended or sunk, however it may be, both the same thing. However it may be, to the shadowed land beyond the aperture of the grave, but rejected this hypothesis when his memory shifted back within his grips. This was not...
I believe that was sifted back.
Sifted back, indeed. This was not the land of the dead. It was something infinitely more precarious than anything the grave could offer. Death promised an infinity of peace, not the finite misery of an inactive life of confined torture, forever concealed from the life-bearing shafts of the beloved rising sun, the orb that had been before taken for granted, yet now cherished above all else. To be forever refused further glimpses of the snow-capped summits of the land of his birth, never again to witness the thrill of plundering unexplored lands beyond the crest of a bleeding horizon, and perhaps worst of all, the denial to ever again encompass the lustful excitement of caressing the naked curves of the body of a trim-yound wench. This was indeed one of the buried chasms of hell concealed within the inner depths of the palace's despised interior. A fearful ebony chamber devised to drive to the brinks of insanity the minds of the unfortunately condemned, though the inapt solitude of a limbo of listless, dreary silence.
God damn it, H.P. Lovecraft.
Please tell... No! Nope. Not gonna lie to you. Please tell me that was more than one sentence.
No, that was 2 sentences.
Was it? Well, the last paragraph was. I think he was talking about to be forever released, young wench. Anyway.
No, but Mazzy looked it up. Dickard is a real word. It means bargaining.
Really? That is very different than what I had assumed. All right.
On to chapter 3.5.
Chapter 3.5. A tightly rung elliptical circle or torches cast their wavering shafts, prancing morbidly. How do you prance morbidly?
Just imagine death in a ballroom gown.
That is far too poetic an image for whatever the fuck is going on here. Prancing morbidly over the smooth surface of a rectangular ridged altar. Expertly chiseled forms of grotesque gargoyles graced the oblique rim protuberating the length of the grim orifice of death, staring forever ahead into nothingness in complete ignorance of the bloody rites enacted in their presence. Brown flaking stains decorated the golden surface of the ridge surrounding the altar, which banked to a small slit at the lower right-hand corner of the altar. I don't know how to differentiate, but he's switching. The slit stood above a crudely pounded pail, which had several silver-meshed chalices hanging at its sides. Dangling at the Rymoff golden mallet, the handle of which was engraved with images of twisted faces and groved at its far end with slots designed for a snug hand grip. The head of the mallet was... I'm really trying hard to be fucking dramatic with this, but half of it's just me trying to puzzle out what I'm reading. Whew. The head of the mallet was slightly larger than a clenched fist and shaped into a smooth oval mass. Encircling the marble altar was a congregation of leering shaman, eerie chants of a bygone age originating unknown aeons before the memory of man were being uttered from the buried recesses of the acolyte's deep lings. Orange paint was smeared in generous globules over the tops of thew priests, wrinkled, shaven scalps, while golden rings projected from the lobes of their pink ears. These are very, very colorful, diabolic cultists. Ornate robes of lucior purple satin enclosed their bulging torsos, attached around their waists with silvered silk lashes latched with ebony buckles in the shape of Moreau's Miss-shapen skulls. Dangling around their necks were oval-fashioned medallions held by thin gold chains, featuring in their centers blood-red rubies, which resembled crimson fetish eyeballs. So I'm guessing it's that image of that one hentai with the eyeball licking, just that around a chain.
Just John K. Peta licking eyeballs out of skulls.
Hey man, they know what they're about.
I'll take over because you kind of laughed at that last sentence.
Okay, fair, dude. Seriously, I'm running out of breath trying to do this. I'm feeling fucking lightheaded trying to keep up. Was the writer gay? Like, no judgment, but his word choice is very deep closet, wanting to be pounded in the ass. I too wonder that from Orifice of Death. Considering how like old school fantasy, like womanizy this story gets, I'm gonna say no. He was probably wall sexual for how horny this kid was. Probably. Go ahead.
Just so much use of wenches. It's like I remember reading The Phoenix on the Sword by an actual barbarian story by Robert E. Howard, the first Conan the Barbarian story ever published. And at the end of it, I was like, wow, there was literally no women in this story at any point. That's kind of fantastic. This one has women in it, but they are nothing but wenches. Cushioning their bare feet were plush red felt slippers with pointed golden spikes projecting from their tips. Situated in front of the altar and directly adjacent to the copper pail was a massive jade idol, a misshaped, hideous bust of the shaman's pagan deity. The shimmering green idol was placed in a sitting posture on an ornately carved golden throne raised upon a round, ivory-plated dais. Its bulging arms and webbed hands rested on the padded arms of the seat. Its head was entwined in golden snake-like coils hanging around its oblong ears, which tapered off to thin hollow points. Its nose was a bulging triangular mass, sunken in at its sides with toe-gaping nostrils. Dramatic beneath the nostrils was a twisted, shaggy-lipped mouth, giving the impression of a slavering, sadistic grimace. At the foot of the heathen deity, a slender, pale-faced female, naked but for a golden jeweled harness enshrouding her huge, outcropping breast. Just like massive peaks standing out, I guess.
just anime titties.
Just Laura Croft breast, basically. Supporting long silver laces which extended to her. Oh, go ahead.
By the way, I just want to point out that a lot of times when people are doing this at conventions around, like with, you know, the big circle of people, usually the people that aren't reading at the time will actually get up and act out the scenes. So, by all means, imagine that. Thicker than a snicker. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Jeweled harness enshrouding her huge outcropping breast, supporting long silver laces which extended to her thighs, stood before the pearl-white field, with noticeable shivers traveling up and down the length of her exquisitely molded body. Her delicate lips trembled beneath soft, narrow hands as she attempted to conceal herself from the piercing stare of the ambivalent idol. We were talking about double entendres with that. Before the pearl-white field with noticeable shivers certainly is one. Glaring directly down towards her was the stony cycloptic face of the bloated deity. Gaping from its single oblong socket was scintillating, many-faceted scarlet emerald, a brilliant gem seeming to possess a life all of its own, a priceless gleaming stone capable of domineering the wealth of conquering empires, the Eye of Argon.
Title drop.
On from chapter 3.5 to chapter 4. All knowledge of measuring time had escaped Grignir. When a person is deprived of the sun, moon, and stars, he loses all conception of time as he had previously understood it. It seemed as if years had passed if time were being measured by terms of misery and mental anguish, yet he estimated that his stay had only been a few days in length. He had slept 3 times and had been fed 5 times since his awakening in the crypt. However, when the actions of the body are restricted, its needs are also affected. The need for nourishment and slumber are directly proportional to the functions of the body has performed, meaning that when free and active, Grignia may become hungry every 6 hours and witness the desire for sleep every 15 hours, whereas in his present condition, he may encounter the need for food every 10 hours and the want for rest every 20 hours. All methods he had before depended upon were extinct in the dismal pit. Hence, he may have been imprisoned for 10 minutes or 10 years. He did not know, resulting in a disheartened emotion deep within his being.
Can we just talk about how badass accordions are that they only need to be fed 5 times every 10 years?
That's just fantastic, isn't it?
I feel like this guy is simultaneously giving us too much information about here we see the native accordion, and nowhere near enough does this motherfucker have a watch.
Just yes, that is how the human body works. If you don't eat and you aren't active, you don't have to eat or sleep for longer periods of time, judging by the amount of inactivity you perform. Also, I'm just impressed that he keeps track of information like this.
How so?
No, just why would you tell us this?
World building, isn't it?
People need to know that when he doesn't move, he doesn't need to eat.
I feel like if you start thinking in terms of that, this whole story could be about a third of the length.
The food, if you can honor the moldering lumps of fetid mush to that extent, was borne to him by 2 guards who opened a portal at the top of his enclosure and shoved it to him in wooden bowls, retrieving the food and water bowls from his previous meal at the same time. After which they threw back the bolts on the iron latch and returned to their other duties. Since deprived of all other means of nourishment, Grignia was impelled to eat the tainted slop in order to ward off the pangs of starvation. Though as he stuffed it into his mouth with his filthy fingers and struggled to force it down his throat, he imagined it was that which had been spurned by the hounds stationed at various segments of the palace.
Okay, I have a sincere question because I have no idea what the fuck is... Like, I know what's going on, right? But hang on. So they open a hole at the top of his enclosure, right? Like, so it makes it sound like he's in a pit, and then they slide the bowl of food. Did they just, like, spin it down the pit like one of those quarter machines at the mall, or... And then how did they get the bowl back out?
The bowl just Beyblades its way back up. Just a little whoop. There was little in the barren vault that could occupy his body or mind. He had placed out the length and width of the enclosure, time and time again, and tested every granite slab which consisted the walls of the prison in hopes of finding a hidden passage to freedom. All of which was to no avail, other than to keep him busy and distract his mind from wandering to thoughts of what he believed was his future. He had memorized the number of strides from one end to the other of the cell, and knew the exact number of slabs at which made up the bleak dungeon. Numerous schemes were introduced, and alternately discarded in turn as they succored to unravel to him no means of escape which stood the slightest chance of success. I'm gonna have to get more water.
Yeah, I told you to be prepared. Unfortunately, I've never seen Monkey Bone Imp. If you want, go ahead, grab it. I will schmooze with the chat. How are you, chat?
No, I'm gonna at least finish this chapter unless I start laughing.
Okay. Josh is a fucking trooper, man.
It's just there's so many times he just doesn't use a goddamn comma to let you have that moment to breathe a little bit. Anguish continued to mount as his means of occupation were rapidly exhausted. Suddenly, without no tithe, he was routed from his contemplations as he detected a faint scratching sound at the end of the crypt opposite him. The sound seemed to be caused by something trying to scrape away at the granite blocks of the floor of the enclosure consisted of the sandy scratching of something like an animal's claws. Grignia gradually groped his way to the other end of the vault, carefully feeling his way along with his hands ahead of him, when a few inches of the wall a loud, penetrating squeal and the scampering of small padded feet reverberated from the walls of the roughly hewn chamber. Grignia threw his hands up to shield his face and flung himself backward upon his buttocks. A fuzzy form bounded to his hairy chest, baring its talons in his flesh while gnashing towards his throat with its grinding white teeth. Its sour fetid breath scorching the skirming I don't know how you would pronounce that. The skirming barbarian's dilating nostrils.
Also, I just want to point out, that's the first semicolon I've seen. I didn't know Jim Ties knew how to use one of those. I'm not sure if it's right or not, but god damn it, he tried. A picture of the comma that killed his mother.
Grignia grappled with the lashing flexor muscles on the repugnant body of the gargantuan brown-hided rat, striving to hold its razor teeth from his juicy jugular, as its beady gray organs of sight blazed into the flaring emeralds of its prey.
You know what? I gotta give him a break on that. There's no good synonym for eyes. You can kind of get away with orbs, but it never felt right to me.
The organs of sight. I don't know if they're technically organs.
Eyes are organs, aren't they?
It's been a while since I took Anatomy 1.
I'm fairly sure they're organs and not muscles.
Taking hold of the rodent around its lean, growling stomach with both hands, Grignia pried it from his crimson-rent breast, removing small patches of flayed flesh from his chest in the motion between the squalid black claws of the starving beast. Holding the rodent at arm's length, he cupped his right hand over its frothing face, constricting his muscles into a vice-like fist over the quivering head. Retaining his grip on the rat, Grignia fleshed his outstretched arms while slowly twisting his right hand clockwise, in his left hand a counterclockwise motion. The rodent let out a tortured squall, drawing scarlet as it violently dug its foam-flecked fangs into the barbarian's sweating palm, causing his face to contort to an ugly grimace as he cursed beneath his breath. I'm assuming that's the Irish way of spelling breath, B-R-A-E-T-H.
Of course.
His breath. With a loud crack, the rodent's head parted from its squirming torso, sending out a sprinkling shower of crimson gore and trailing a slimy string of disjointed vertebrae. Snapped trachea, esophagus, and jugular, disjointed hyoid bone, morose purpled stretched hide, and blood-seared muscles.
This purpled stretched hide was sad. He hurt its feelings.
It's like this is the biggest description of him murdering something. It's just him grabbing a rat and just...
Yeah. That clockwise and counterclockwise motion. He did this. How the fuck did he kill it like this?
Just, my fellest foe, this massive rat.
Flinging... It's the mini-boss of the dungeon.
Flinging the broken body to the floor, Grignia shook his blood-streaked hands and wiped them against his thigh until dry, then wiped the blood that had showered his face and from his eyes. It's like, I'm wearing no clothes and my hands are dirty, so let me just rub it against my naked thighs.
Like, he's a very clean barbarian, but at the same time, he's just moving it elsewhere. Yusuf, how's it going, buddy?
Yes, unacceptable dry thighs. Not in my hentai literature club. Again, sitting himself upon the jagged floor, he prepared to once more revamp his glum meditations. He told himself that as long as he still breathed the gust of life through his lungs, hope was not lost. He told himself this, but found it hard to comprehend in his gloomy surroundings. Yet, he was still alive, his bulging sinews at the peak of marvel, his struggling mind floating in a morale of impressed excellence of thought. Plot after plot sifted through the mind in energetic contemplations. Then it hit him. Minutes may have passed in silent thought or days, he could not tell, but he stumbled at last upon a plan that he considered as holding a slight margin of plausibility. He might die in the attempt, but he knew he would not submit without a final bloody struggle. It was not a foolproof plan, yet it built upon a store of renewed vortex energy in his overwrought soul. Though he might perish in the execution of the escape, he would still be escaping the life of infinite torture in store for him. Either way, he would still cheat the gloating prince of the succored revenge his sadistic mind craved so dearly. The gods would soon come to bear him off to the prince's buried mines of dread, giving him the sought-after opportunity to execute his newly formulated plan. Groping his way along the rough floor, Grignia finally found his tool in a pool of concealed gore.
The rat had clawed it off. That's why you wear more than just a loincloth to battle, Grignir.
Groping his way along the rough floor, Grignia finally found his tool in a pool of concealed gore. The carcass of the decapitated rodent. The tool that the very filth he had been sentenced to spawned. When the time came for action, he would have to be prepared. So he set himself to rending the sticky hulk in grim silence, searching by the touch of his fingertips for the lever to freedom.
All right, go ahead and get your water, and I will. I will wait for you because it is far more fun when you are here. And hopefully Adam will be joining us soon. Come on, you guys can't tell me that you don't want to listen to Adam.
Somebody's waving to you, Chaz.
Oh, is it you, Mazzy? Hi, Mazzy. I'll wave back. Hey, no problem, Imp. We'll have this on YouTube, like everything else. So you're welcome to continue your commentary in the comments. We are currently 50 minutes and 23 seconds in. So timestamp, unless the YouTube timestamp is different for some reason, in which case I can't help you. So how's it going, everybody? Yes, Adam has been telling us for days that he'd be able to join us tonight. And I guess he wasn't as free as he thought, but we're going to send him a text message right now. Adam, let us know when you can get on. We'll include you. What do you want me to say to Adam, chat? Tell me right now. This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to be included in a text message I say to Adam. Cool Imp says blowjobs. Mazzy says we love you, Adam. And Yusuf says include cannolis. Okay. I think we're good. So hopefully he'll be here soon. Dude, the fucking Rise of the Free States, Adam, or Carlo Martino is my favorite character he's ever made. That was truly tremendous. And we're going to be picking it up again soon. I'm legitimately concerned it won't be as good because I'm fairly certain we caught lightning in a bottle the first time.
Oh, what are we talking about?
Rise of the Free States and how good Adam was.
Completely by accident.
That's how the best things happen, though. We need a new Bob. We're working on getting the old Bob back. No promises, though, unfortunately, as he's a very busy man with a lot of stuff to do. I 100% agree.
Fucking Bob.
All right, who's up?
I don't know if you want to take over for a little bit. I feel like I got through most of that impressive chapter 4.
All right. Up to the altar and be done with it, wench, ordered a fidgeting shaman as he gave the female a grim stare, accompanied by the wrinkling of his lips into a mirthful grin of delight. The girl burst into a slow, steady whimper, stooping shakily to her knees, and cringing woefully from the priest with both arms wound snake-like around the bulging jade shin rising before her scantily attired figure. Her face... Huh?
That was like my favorite devil fruit, the jade fruit.
Ah, yes. I just... winding her arms snake-like, holding on for dear life. Later, Imp. Have a good one, buddy.
You have a good night.
Her face was redly inflamed from the salty flow of tears spouting from her glassy, dilated eyeballs. With short, heavy footfalls, the priest approached the female, his piercing stare never wavering from her quivering young countenance. Halting before the terrified girl, he projected his arm outward and motioned her to arise with an upward movement of his hand. The girl's whimpering increased slightly, and she sunk closer to the floor rather than arising. The flickering torches outlined her trim build with a weird, ornate glow as it cast a ghostly shadow over, dancing in horrid waves of splendor over smoothly worn whiteness of the marble-hewn altar. Is it weird that he's just banging on and on about how hot this chick is? Like, granted, he's a horny 16-year-old, but I'm like, really? Now?
You need to fuck. Just putting it all on page right there for him.
All right. The shaman's lip curled back farther, exposing a set of blackened, decaying molars which transformed his slovenly grin into a wide, greasy arc of sadistic mirth and alternately interposed into the female a strong sense. Fuck, I tried to do that in one breath, it didn't happen. Alright, you're up. Read your sentences out loud, people.
Unless you're Stephen King, he gets away with it. The shaman's lips curled back farther, exposing a set of blackened, decaying molars which transformed his slovenly grin into a wide, greasy arc of sadistic mirth, and alternately interposed into the female a strong sensation of stomach-curdling nausea. Have it as you will, female, gloated the enhanced priest as he bent over at the waist.
For natural male enhancement, try the Eye of Argon.
Projecting his ape-like arms forward and clasping the female's slender arms with his hairy round fist. With an inward surge of his biceps, he harshly jerked the trembling girl to her feet and smothered her salty, wet cheeks with the moldy touch of his decrepit, dull red lips. The vile stench of the shaman's hot, fetid breath overcame the nauseated female with a deep soul-searing sickness, causing her to wrench her head backwards and regurgitate a slimy, orange-white stream of swelling gore over the richly woven purple robe of the enthused acolyte. The priest's lips trembled with the malicious rage as he removed his callous paws from the girl's arms and replaced them with tightly around her undulating neck.
Oh, okay, I'm gonna give you a mulligan on that one. You laughed because I was just undulating. Oh, that one fucking murdered me.
Orange liqueur from my soul and water from my mouth. The girl gasped a tortured groan from her clamped lungs, her sea-blue eyes bulging forth from damp sockets. Cocking her right foot backward, she leashed it desperately, outwards with the strength of a demon possessed.
I just realized, this is a Ren and Stimpy cartoon. Just bulging eyes, undulating neck, puking straight up into the sky all over somebody. This is fucking Ren and Stimpy.
Cocking her right foot backward, she leashed it desperately outwards with the strength of a demon possessed, lodging her sandaled foot squarely between the shaman's testicles. The startled priest released his crushing grip, crimping his body over at the waist, overlooking his recessed belly, wide open in a deep chasm. His face flushed to a rose-red shade of crimson, eyelids fluttering wide with the eyeballs protruding blindly outwards from the sockets to the outmost perimeters. I guess that would be pronounced perimeters. While his lips quivered widely about allowing an agonized wallow to gust forth as his breath billowed from burning lungs. His hands reached out, clutching his urinary gland as his knees wobbled. Clutching his urinary gland, yes.
That's a medical term, right?
I'm assuming.
Okay. Oh, fuck me. Hang on, I completely lost the plot, literally. His hands reached out, clutching his urinary gland as his knees wobbled rapidly about for a few seconds, then buckled, causing the ruptured shaman to collapse in an egg-huddled mass to the granite pavement, rolling helplessly about in his agony. The pathetic screeches of the shaman groveling in dejected misery upon the hand-hewed granite, laid pavement, worn smooth by countless hours of arduous sweat and toil, a welter of ichor oozing through his clenched hands attracted the perturbed attention of his comrades from their fetid ululations. One sentence. The actions of this rebellious wench bespoke the credence of an unheard-of sacrilege. Never before in a lost maze of untold aeons had a chosen one dared to demonstrate such blasphemy in the face of the cult's idolic deity.
How dare you kick the chosen one in the testicles? Boo upon you, madam.
The girl cowered in unreasoning terror, helpless in the face of the emblazoned acolyte's rage. Her orchid-tussled face... Orchid-tussled... What?
Just her face surrounded in flowers.
Sure, her orchid tussle face smothered twixt her bulging bosom. So just...
Dramatically, please.
Okay, you know what? You're right. I am. I'm a fucking professional. The girl cowered in unreasoning terror, helpless in the face of the unblazoned acolyte's rage, her orchid-tousled face smothered betwixt her bulging bosom as she shut her curled lash tightly, hoping to open them and find herself awakening from a morbid nightmare. Yet the hand of destiny decreed her no such mercy, as the antagonized pack of leering shaman converging tensely upon her prostrate form were entangled all too lividly in the grim web of reality.
Just her breasts were so big, her face was smothered amongst them.
Well, because she had the orchids, like, weighing it down. And then while her neck was undulating, bobblehead physics, so just... It was really the only place soft to land.
Just... Her O-cups were just smashing into her face.
might as well be. That explains why they're so perky and fucking out to here. Okay. Shudder.
100% this kid masturbated to Frank Frazetta novel covers.
Oh, yeah. I don't doubt it.
As I'm sure many teenagers did in the 70s. I'm not singling this kid out.
I will.
I've been to Gen Con. I know what you look like.
Shuddering from the clammy touch of the shaman as they grappled with her supple form. Again, she's so soft and supple. Hands wrenching at her slender arms and legs in all direction, her bare body being molested in the midst of a labyrinth of orange smudges, purpled satin and mangled skulls. Shadowed in an eerie crimson glow, her confused head reeled then clouded in a midst of enshrouding ebony as she lapsed beneath the protective sheet of unconsciousness to a land peach and resign.
A land peach. That one I'm not sure what he went for right there with land peach.
To a land peach and resign.
Like peaceful and resigned?
I guess. Really, really nicely hued.
I mean, if I'm being honest, I kind of like the fact that the evil cultists are all like wearing orange and pink.
Well, it's like purple, and then like they paint their heads orange, but then they've got like jewels and shit. So really, this is just the most garish ritual.
I was going to say, I mean, they're basically pimps. Just all these wenches and orange and jewels.
Oh, that's fucking great. Okay, you're gonna love this one. Ready for this?
Yes.
Take hold of this rope, said the first soldier, and climb out from your pit, slut. Your presence is requested in another far deeper hellhole. Grignir slipped his right hand to his thigh, concealing a small, opaque object beneath the folds of the G-string wrapped around his waist. It's taken him less than 5 days to go full-blown prison gay. Brine wells swelled in Grignir's cold, jade-squinting eyes, which, grown accustomed to the gloom of the Stygian pools of ebony engulfing him, were bedazzled and blinded by the flickering radiance cast forth by the second soldier's resin torch. Tightly gripped in the second soldier's right hand, opposite the intermittent torch. So just, his torch is on the fucking fritz, just blinking on and out like a streetlight. Was a large... Huh?
And the story's a lot better if you imagine it as one giant, like, psychedelic fever dream rave.
So basically just heavy metal, but with more drugs? I get it.
I guess Conan the Barbarian heavy metal with the... directed by the dude who did Mandy.
That makes a lot of sense. Tightly gripped in the second soldier's right hand, opposite the intermittent torch, was a large double-edged axe. A long leather wound, oaken-handled, transfixing the center of the weapon's iron head. Adorning the torsos of both of the sentries were thin yet sturdy hauberks. I believe a hauberk refers explicitly to chainmail, and you don't want thin chainmail necessarily, unless it's made of like Pepsi caps. The breastplate plates of which you were wrong 3 times, Jim Thighs, in the same sentence about the same subject. I'm actually kind of impressed. The breastplates of which were woven of tightly hemmed twines 4 times, of reinforced silver braiding 5 times. Cupping the soldiers' feet were thick leather sandals wound about their shins to 2 inches below their knees. Wrapped around their waists were wide satin girdles with slender bladed poniards dangling loosely from them, the hilts of which featured scarlet encrusted gems. These are some swanky fucking prison guards. Like, that sword alone has to be worth, like, 5 times his salary.
I was gonna say, well, they're living in their boss's hedonism bot.
Oh, man, I wish I voiced him like that. To the dungeons.
Ooh, to the dungeons.
Till you are simmered. Where was I? Satin girdles, crushed gems, resting upon the manes of their heads and reaching midway to their brows were smooth copper morions. Spiraling the lower portion of the helmet were short, upcurved silver spikes, while a golden hump speared from the top of each bassinet. Beneath their chins, wound around their necks and draping their clad shoulders, dangled regal purple satin cloaks, which flowed midway to the soldiers' feet. Hand over hand, feet braced against the dank walls of the enclosure, huge Grignir ascended from the mouldering depths of the forlorn abyss, his swelled limbs stiff due to the boredom of a timeless inactivity, compounded by the musty atmosphere and jagged granite protuberant against his body craved for action. The opportunity now presenting itself served the purpose of oiling his rusty joints and honing his dulled senses. He braced himself, facing the second soldier. The sentry's stature was wildly exaggerated in the glare of the flickering crescent cuppix, his right fist. His eyes were widely open in a slightly slanted, owlish glaze. What? Hang on, sorry. Don't switch, please. I don't want you to switch. I want you to do the things I've been telling you to do. Are we good? Are we still good? Okay, yeah, sorry. OBS had a boo-boo. Or actually, Discord had a boo-boo. One of the two. And now I'm frozen. Okay, give me 1 second. Video capture device. Video capture device. Nope, that's me from now on, guys. And we're good.
Wonder bar.
God damn it. Equipment interrupting this fine story from our audience. Huge Grignir. Huh? What's up?
Like, come on, Chaz, you gotta keep it going. They want to hear more about the boobs and the witches.
Well, I mean, who doesn't? God, I can only imagine if this dude wrote erotica.
He might sell pretty well. You don't have to write well to write erotica.
That's the fucking truth. Okay. Huge Grignir ascended for... Oh, wait, I read all that already. Well, what's the point? He braced himself, facing the second soldier. The sentry's stature was wildly exaggerating in the glare of the flickering crescent cuppix's right fist. His eyes were wide open in a slightly slanted, owlish glaze, enhanced in their sinister intensity by the hawkbill curve of his nose and pale yellow peak of his cheeks. "Place your hands behind your back," said the second soldier as he raised his axe over the right shoulder blade and cast it a wavering glance. "We must bind your wrists to parry any attempts at escape. Be sure to make the knot a stout one, Broig. We wouldn't want our guest to take leave of our guidance." Broig grasped Grignir's left wrist and reached for the barbarian's right wrist. Grignir wrenched his right arm free and swiveled to face Broig. Reach! Dash! Beneath his loincloth with his right hand. You can have it! But you all know what I was fucking picturing, and I refuse to be made a pariah for it. Haha, truncheon!
Broig grasped Grimnir's left wrist and reached to the barbarian's right wrist. Grignir wrenched his right arm free and swiveled to face Broig, reaching beneath his loincloth with his right hand. The sentry grappled at his girdle for the sheathed dagger, but recoiled short of his intentions as Grignir's right arm swept to his gorge. The soldier went limp, his bobbing eyes rolling beneath fluttering eyelids. a deep welt across his spouting gullet. Without lingering to observe the result of his efforts, Grignia dropped to his knees. The second soldier's axe cleft over Grignia's head into a blizz of silvered ferocity, severing several scarlet locks from his scalp. Coming to rest on his fellow's stomach, the iron head crashed through mail and flesh with splintering force, spilling a pool of crimsoned entrails over the granite paving. If you imagine every weapon in that last paragraph is a phallic object, just that is 100% erotica.
Fair point. Yusuf wants to know if this is the origins of the Gorian BDSM universe. I'm not familiar, but you might be.
Oh man, you don't know what the Gorian BDSM universe is, Chaz?
I guess I'm just fucking retarded tonight, man. Just go ahead.
Well, just a quick aside, the Gorian BDSM universe that Yusuf is referring to is a fantasy novel series, I believe, starting either in the late 70s or the early 80s.
Oh, it was made into a movie, wasn't it?
Yes, it was called Gore.
Okay, I'm vaguely familiar with the movie thanks to the Cinema Snob, but please continue.
Yes, but I think the writer is actually a psychologist, and he actually was one of the first people to ever write a book on like BDSM practices meant for like the public. But his fantasy series is a world where like all women are all slaves and all men are basically loincloth barbarians. And just it's like this thing where it's like, yes, women are psychologically inferior to men. They wish to be mastered by them in sexual and physical scenarios.
Yeah, that sounds pretty 70s, 80s.
Yeah, well, I'm 90% sure it's still ongoing. Like, he's still publishing books. There's like 30 of them at least.
Holy shit! The Wheel of Time had fucking 15!
And the Wheel of Time is nothing in the land of Gore.
I guess when you know what you're about, man, you just keep getting inspiration.
Oh yeah, and I guess it's technically an isekai because the main character is, I think his name is Brian Calbert or something like that. And, yeah, he gets transported to this other world by, like, getting hit by a car or something like that and having a jewel on him or something that transports him to the other world. Oh, I would have to get way more in depth to give you an analysis rather than a summary, Yusuf.
I see, there's shades of an interesting idea there. You know what I mean? Where you could have a person completely foreign to these lands and sort of like grappling with these ideas, exploring them in depth, and the psychologically of people who actually think that way. And I'm 100% certain that that's not how that played out.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is like literally the author is one of the first people to write like a book on actual BDSM and like talking about it, which is funny because then he wrote this like super Mary Sue kind of BDSM fantasy to fulfill like sexual desires, and I think in interviews he kind of plays it up as something that's meant to actually be an artistic statement rather than masturbatory material.
Gore or the BDSM book?
Both. Gore is the BDS. Oh, I guess the Gore. I think the BDSM book is slightly more serious.
I kind of like I there's part of me that wants to check it out in case it does have artistic merit, but at the same time it kind of sounds like the Fatal of the fantasy genre.
It's a bit of a joke, but yeah.
We'll figure it out. Continue. I've detracted long enough.
It's an interesting read. Roy, I already read that bit. Before the sentry could wrench his axe free from his comrade's carcass, he found Grignia's massive hands clasped about his throat, choking the life from his clamped lungs. Once again, just John K. Peta just stuck his hand into his chest and started gripping his lungs, I guess. With a zealous grunt, the accordion flexed his tightly corded biceps, forcing the grim-faced soldier to one knee. The sentry plunged his right fist into Grignia's face, digging his grimy nails into the barbarian's flesh. Ejaculating a curse through the rasping teeth, Grignia surged the bulk of his weight four-eared. Excuse me. Bowling the besieged soldier over upon his back. The sentry's arms collapsed to his thighs, shuddering convulsively. His bulging eyes staring blindly from a bloated cherry-red face. Once again, cherry red. Rising to his feet, Grignia shook the blood from his eyes, ruffling his surly red mane as a brush fire swaying to the nighttime breeze. Stooping over the sprawled corpse of the first soldier, Grignir retrieved a small white object from a pool of congealing gore. Snorting a gusty billow of mirth, he once more concealed the tiny object beneath his loincloth, the tediously owned pelvis bone of the broken rodent. Returning his attention toward the second soldier, Grignir turned to the task of attiring his limbs. To move about freely through the dim recesses of the castle would require the grotesque garb of its soldiery. Yeah, I read that one correctly. A gusty billow of mirth.
I kind of...
Well, you
that's
see,
like
Mazzy,
belly laughing, right? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, Mazzy, he took so long to take out the generic guard because he was so tired from just fucking snapping that rat.
I was just going to say these are elite enemies. Or maybe all his stuff was on cooldown. He blew the daily on the rat. That's as close as I can get to a D&D reference.
You learn resource management, kids.
You never know when you'll have to fight 2 guards after a rat.
Yeah, he must be using DCC rules. This is the 70s after all.
Ah, fair point. It blows. I'm sorry. It blows my mind to think that this was written 4 years before D&D was a thing. Like, we're talking before White Box, before Arneson had an itch in his pants to run Braunstein. This was a thing, and that's amazing to me.
Back in the grim days of chainmail tabletop RPG.
Yeah.
Utilizing the silence and stealth acquired in the untamed climes of his childhood, Grignir slinked through twisting corridors and winding stairways, lighting his way with the confiscated torch of his dispatched guardian. Knowing where his steps were leading to, Grignir meandered aimlessly in search of an exit from the chateau's dim confines.
Hang on. If he knows where his steps are leading to, how the fuck is he meandering aimlessly? Fuck it.
The wild blood coursing through his veins yearned for the undefiled freedom of the livid wilderness lands. Coming upon a fork in the passage, he shrieked, voices accompanied by clinking footfalls discerned to his sensitive ears from the left corridor. Wishing to avoid contact, Grignir veered to the right passageway. If questioned as to the purpose of his presence, his barbarous accent would reveal his identity, being that his attire was not that of the castle's mercenary troops. In grim silence, Grignir treaded down the dingily lit corridor, a stalking panther creeping warily along on padded feet. After an interminable period of wandering through the dull corridors, no gaps to break the monotony of the cold gray walls, Grignir espied a small winding stairway. Descending the flight of arced granite slabs to their posterior, Grignir was confronted by a short hallway leading to a tall arched wooden doorway.
Okay, I have several questions. So didn't he say that he needed the fucking uniforms to be able to move about the castle? And then immediately he decided, you know what, fuck those uniforms, man. They look like shit. Alright, I might be a barbarian. I might be filthy from prison and covered in blood, but I've got fucking standards. And second of all, this motherfucker is still running around in his underwear. He left fucking chainmail, ruby-encrusted swords, and a goddamn battle axe just there. 'Cause fuck it.
Well, he clearly didn't realize that was loot thrown at him by the DM, Chaz.
Ah, god damn it, of course. You know, it's happened to us all.
Halting before the teeming portal, Grignir rested his shaggy head sideways against the barrier. Detecting no sounds from within, he grasped the looping metal handle of the door.
Wait, hang on. I actually found it. I was right. Where the fuck was it? Something about attiring his limbs. He put on the fucking clothes, and then just nah. You know what? This is. I'm overthinking this. This is Grignir's Mary Sue power. All right, he can both do things and not do things at the same time.
You underestimate his meta abilities. Retrieving his axe with no E from where he had sheathed it beneath his girdle, he hefted it to his mighty hands with an apposite grunt, and wedging one of his blackened edges into the crack between the portal and its iron-rimmed sill. Bracing his sandaled right foot against the ruggedly hewn wall, teeth tightly clenched, Grignir levered the oaken haft, employing it as a lever whereby to pry open the barrier. The leather-wound hilt bending to its utmost limits of endurance, The massive portal swung open with a grating of snapped latch and rusty iron hinges.
Did he take this shit or not? Like I said, you can explain something to the point where you just have no idea what's going on. And now I am having a fucking existential crisis trying to keep track of this motherfucker's character sheet.
So if I were to ever write a paper about this, the way I would look at it would be like the use of fantasy elements to explore adolescent developing sexuality in the Eye of Argon.
Loneliest one, how you doing? We're sorry you're the loneliest one. We'll keep you company.
There's just so many innuendos that we're just phallic and yonic imagery. Glancing about the dust-swirled room in the gloomily dancing glare. His flickering cresset, Grignir eyed evidences of the enclosure being nothing more than a forgotten storeroom. Miscellaneous articles required for the maintenance of a castle were piled in disorganized heaps, at infrequent intervals toward the wall opposite the barbarian's piercing stare. Utilizing intervals towards the wall opposite the barbarian's piercing stare. Utilizing long, bounding strides, Grignir paced his way over to the mounds of supplies to discover if any articles of value were contained within their midst. So this is the point in the story where the DM is like, you find the storeroom, which has been put here to fill out the map. And the player's like, yes, let me see if there's anything valuable in what you clearly meant to be a fluff room.
Dude, no shit. When you read the next paragraph, that makes so much sense. Or maybe the next two.
Detecting a faint clinking sound, Grignir sprawled.
Adam's logging in! Hey,
Detecting a faint clinking sound, Grignir sprawled to his left side with the speed of a striking cobra, landing harshly upon his back, torch and axe loudly clattering to the floor in a morass of sparks and flame. A elm-woven board leaped from collapsed flooring, clashing against the jagged flooring and spewing a shower of orange and yellow sparks over Grignir's startled face. Rising uneasily to his feet, the half-stunned accordion glared down at the gruesome arms of death he had unwittingly sprung. Mifrik. That's a deity they mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Mifik. M-I-R-I-F-K. Mrifk.
This story just slowly eats at your fucking sanity little by little until I become super OCD, and I'm not quite sure how to quantify that, but I think we're feeling it.
What we're doing, Loneliest One, is we're doing a reading of a story called The Eye of Argon, which is supposedly one of the worst fantasy novellas ever written. And it is so bad it has become a game to go to conventions and read it and try not to laugh. And every time you laugh, the next person has to try reading it without laughing.
Yeah, basically we're missing most of the people from tonight's game, so Josh and I are both literary nerds, so I was like, you know what? We gotta do this. This'll be funny as hell. So far, it hasn't disappointed, but it's driven us just a little bit nuts.
We've already failed at least 1 or 2 sanity rolls. If not for his keen auditory organs and lightning-steeled reflexes, Grignir would have been groping through the shadowed hell pits of the Grim Reaper. He had unknowingly stumbled upon an ancient, long-forgotten booby trap, a mistake which would have stunted the perusal of longevity of one less agile. A mechanism similar in type to that of a miniature catapult was concealed beneath 2 collapsible sections of granite flooring. The arm of the device was 4 feet long, boasting razor-like cleats at regular intervals along its face, with which it was to skewer the luckless body of its would-be victim. Grignir had stepped upon a concealed catch which reliced a small metal latch beneath 2 granite sections, causing them to fall inward and thereby loose the spiked arm of death they precariously held in. I cannot imagine how that looks or works without seriously having to think of it. That is a terrible description of what is a one-off trap.
Yeah.
Partially out of curiosity and partially out of... Hey, Adam's calling.
Adam is calling! Well, we should answer. Oh, this is gonna fuck up my cameras. Adam, are you there? Hello, Adam.
Okay, my video's off. There we go. I'm going to put the top on.
Okay,
I am back. I'm alive.
Adam, literally everyone has missed you. Literally everyone.
Well, even I missed myself, Chaz. Let's get it. And I deal with myself all the time.
Can
Okay.
they still see and hear us?
They
Oh, yes, they can.
Let me put the brightness on my thing there.
I'm gonna minimize myself because I'm not quite that self-important, and we're gonna find a camera for Adam. All right, so Adam, do you know what we're doing?
I saw something about reading something. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I
So,
can't read it.
all right, so you're gonna help us with this, right? This is widely recognized as one of the worst fantasy stories ever written. And it's so bad, so cringy, that it's become a party game to be played at like science fiction and fantasy conventions. Oh my god, you're so stretched out. That is entirely my fault. There we go. That's better. And then we're just gonna boop 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 boop.
It's true, loneliest one. We have a friend.
People can tolerate us a little bit.
Friend is a strong word, John. Let's get it on. As
Friend
some would
is
say.
a strong word for what we are.
Okay, so do you have the link that I have posted in the group chat?
Because it said the image is not available and received the image. Don't let me view it.
The
Because you sent
link?
it to me. You probably just sent it to me personally, probably.
Okay.
Because it won't let me view it.
All right, while you're doing that, should I go ahead and keep reading?
Hang on. What chapter are we on? Are we on 6?
Yes. Thank God there's only, 7.5 chapters in this?
Something like that. So, the rules are, Adam, you have to read it dramatically as you can. If you laugh, you pass it on, and you have to read it phonetically.
Okay.
Oh,
phonetically?
loneliest one throwing some shade at the chat. We usually get a good number of people chatting. This is, I guess, a little bit less interactive than what we normally do, so it's understandable. What's up, Adam?
Oh, I was opening the chat there. I opened up the chat. I guess I can see it. Okay, never mind. Yeah.
Okay, so you've got the story.
No, it still doesn't let me view it. Oh, there we go. Yes. Connecting. Yeah.
Okay, we are on chapter 6, right below. Looks like a
page
pic.
after the weird little fucking donkey dragon thing.
Well, he's got something different than you do because you have the actual PDF. But yeah, underneath the weird donkey dragon thing, we're somewhere around there. See if you can catch up to us.
Is it the one that says
we forgot to mention-
IVCK? Evic. The thing that says Evic. Yeah, the thing with the unibrow, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the one.
Yes.
Good on you, Adam.
We're about one page below that if you had pages.
I don't have pages, no.
No, it's literally a wall of text and then drawings.
Yeah, we forgot to mention that if you get the PDF or if you get the web page of this, it has the pictures that was actually included with the story, and they don't make a lot of sense. All right, should I continue now?
Please do, friend. Oh, do we want to recap the story for Adam?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
the chat will catch me up. Hopefully, we want to talk to me. Chat,
You were
catch me
thrown
up.
into this madness, Adam, with no context. Partially out of curiosity and partially out of an inordinate fear of becoming a pincushion for a possible second trap, Gravina plunged his torch into the exposed gap in the floor. The floor of a second chamber stood out 7 feet below the glare. Tossing his torch through the aperture, Gravina grasped the side of an adjoining tile, dropping down.
Look, can I point out that what you said was 100% accurate? Literally, you can see the DM and the player. I searched the storeroom. All right, you find a trap. You find a fucking trap. Are you happy? All right, you missed the trap, and underneath it is the dungeon.
David Seraph voice. I've beaten that Deus Ex one. Glancing about the room, Gravina discovered that he had descended into the palace's mausoleum. Rectangular stone crypts cluttered the floor at evenly placed intervals. The tops of the enclosures were plated with thick layers of virgin gold, while the sides were plated with white ivory, at one time sparkling but now grown dingy through the passage of the rays of all-encompassing Mother Time. Featured at the head of each sarcophagus in tarnished silver was an expugnissively carved likeness of its rotting inhabitant. A dingy atmosphere pervaded the air of the chamber, which sealed the enclosure for an unknown period had grown thick and stale. Intermingling with the curdled currents was the repugnant stench of slowly moldering flesh, creeping ever slowly but surely through minute cracks in numerous vaults. Due to the embalming of the bodies, the flesh decayed at a much slower rate than is normal, yet the nauseous odor was nonetheless repellent. Towering over Grignier's head was a trap he released. The mechanism of the miniaturized catapult was cluttered with mildew and cobwebs. Notwithstanding these relics of antiquity, its efficiency remained unimpinged. To the right of the trap wound a short stairway through a recess in the ceiling, a concealed entrance leading to the mausoleum for which the catapult had obviously been erected as a silent, relentless guardian.
Hang on. Our connection went fucked up. And we're good.
I finally found where we're at.
Yay! Everything worked out.
Yes. And hello, everybody.
Adam, can you your camera just a little bit?
No. You only get a little bit of me, Chaz. It's
Just the tip of the atom.
the tip of the atom.
Towering over Grignier was a trap he released. The mechanism of the miniaturized catapult, I already read that bit. Climbing up the side of the device, Grignier set to the task of resetting its mechanism. In the event that a search was organized, it would prove well to leave no evidence of his presence open to wandering eyes. Beside, it might even serve to dwindle the size of an opposing force. Descending from his perch, Grignier was startled by a faintly muffled scream of horrified desperation. His hair prickled yawkishly in disorganized clumps along his scalp. As a cold danced along the length of his spinal cord, no mortal barrier. What's up?
Connection again.
No.
I don't know why it's so fucking shitty lately. I don't know what technocracy god we pissed off. But,
It just doesn't like me coming back, Chaz. I'll leave.
no, it's because the weather's been bullshit lately. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Any reprieve I get from this nightmare. As the cold danced along the length of his spinal cord, no mortal barrier, human or otherwise, was capable of arousing the numbing sensation of fear inside of Grignier's smoldering soul. However, he was overwrought by the forces of the barbarian's instinctive fear of the supernatural. His mighty thews had always served to adequately conquer any tangible foe. But the intangible was something distant and terrible. Dim, horrifying tales passed by word of mouth over glimmering campfires, and skins of wine had more than once served the purpose of chilling the marrowed core of his sturdy-limbed bones. Yet, the scream contained a strangely human quality, unlike that which Grignier imagined would come from the lungs of a demon or spirit, making Grignier take short, nervous strides advancing to the sarcophagus from which the sound was issuing. Clenching his teeth in an attempt to steel his jangled nerves, Grignier slit the engraved slab from the vault with a sharp rasp of grinding stone. Another long-drawn cry of terror-infested anguish met the barbarian, scoring like the shrill piping of a demented banshee, piercing the inner fibers of his superstitious brain with primitive dread and awe. Stooping over to his espy, the tomb's contents, the glittering accordion's nostrils was singed by the scorching aroma of a moldering corpse, long shut up and fermenting, like kimchi or wine or vinegar. The same putrid stench which permeated the entire chamber, though multiplied to a much more concentrated dosage. The shriveled leathery packet of crumbling bones and dried flacking flesh offered no resistance, but remained in a fixed position of perpetual vigilance, watching over its dim abode from hollow gaping sockets. The tortured cries were not coming from the tomb, but from some hidden depth below. Pulling the reeking corpse from its resting place, Grignier tossed it to the floor in a broken, mangled heap. Upon one side of the crypt's bottom was attached a series of tiny hinges, while running parallel along the opposite side of a convex railing like protuberance, they'd so as to appear as a part of the interior surface of the sarcophagus. Raising the slab upon its bronze hinges, long removed from the gaze of human eyes, Grignier perceived a scene which caused his blood to smolder not unlike bubbling molten lava. Directly below him, a whimpering female lay stretched upon a smooth-surfaced marble altar. A pack of grassy, faced shaman clustered around her in a tight circular formation. Crouched over the girl was a tall, pot-bellied priest, his face domineering by a disgusting open-mouthed grimace of sadistic glee.
He bounded back real fast from having his nutsack kicked open.
Suspended from the acolyte's clenched right hand was a carven, oval-faced mallet, which he waved menacingly over the girl's shadowed face, an incoherent gibbering flowing from his grinning, thick-lipped mouth. I feel like this guy was bullied by a fat person at some point. Every bad person is either jiggling or has a pot belly.
Wait, so did they sacrifice people to this god with the fucking hammer?
I guess so. Just a fucking mallet just bashed their brains in.
You are the honored chosen one. Bam, 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 bam.
Josh, either that or he was a victim of the ugly bastard.
Oh, the fat ugly bastard.
Loneliest one, you are absolutely welcome to do so. We display our chat for a reason, and we encourage it. By all means, go for it. We just might not be able to respond right away if we're reading, of course.
All right. In the face of the amorphous, broad-breasted female stretched out alluringly before his gaping eyes.
Jesus! It's always. She's so hot. She's so hot. Mortal danger, but this chick is just banging.
Just big bazongas. Ah, yes, they were having sex. The man was twisting the woman's nipples and pulling her towards his own. God, that fucking love.
Woo! You make love well, wench. Adam, you missed so much. Yeah. Morrigan's Wolf. How's it going, Morrigan's Wolf?
We're reading a terrible story from the 70s that people like to laugh at. And apparently, in the young author's mind, having sex meant twisting somebody's nipples and touching it with your nipples.
I'm not familiar with the acronym HTF. Forgive me. Can't be worse than My Immortal. I told you! Next time nobody shows up, we have to read My Immortal.
This is 40 years before My Immortal. Either that or read the original Mary Sue with Spock and Captain Kirk.
Ooh. You know what? People have been starving for RPG Imaginarium stuff. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just saying we could make this a thing.
Then we have to start reading fan fictions.
Well, that's what My Immortal is. Although thankfully, yeah. I've been inoculated to My Immortal thanks to Internet Historian, so it's so super cringy bad. It is really it'll make you cringe so hard you will actually pucker through some of it.
The universal whim of nature filing a plea of despair inside of his white-hot soul. Grignir acted in the only manner he could perceive, giving vent to a hoarse, throat-rending battle cry. Grignir plunged into the midst of the startled shaman, torch simmering in his left hand and axe twirling in his right hand. A gaunt, skull-faced priest standing by the far side of the altar clutched desperately at his throat, coughing furiously in an attempt to catch his breath. Lurching helplessly to and fro, the acolyte pitched headlong against the gleaming base of a massive jade idol. Writhing agonizedly.
Morrigan's Wolf, thank you for following. This is not our typical shtick, but we're happy to have you here. Normally we do tabletop RPGs from the World of Darkness. But hey, we will be on YouTube. We'll have the full thing over there, link below, and thanks for being here. Sorry, continue.
No, you're good. I was just trying to find my place again. Writhing agonizedly against the hideous image, foam flecking his chalk-white lips, the priest struggled helplessly, the victim of an epileptic seizure. The real victim, undiagnosed epilepsy. Startled by the barbarian's stunning appearance, the chronic fit of their fellow, and the fear that Grignir might be the avant-garde of a conquering force dedicated to the cause of destroying the degenerated cult, the Saman momentarily lost their composure, giving vent to heedless pandemonium. The priest fell easy prey to Grignir's sweeping arc of crimsoned death and maiming destruction.
So, I'm trying to picture that. They're just panicking, running around in circles while this guy's cutting them down with an axe.
Good
night, Annie. Thanks for being here.
Good night.
Night.
The acolyte performing the sacrifice took a vicious blow to the stomach, hands clutching vitals and severed spinal cord as he sprawled over the altar. The disorganized priest lurched and staggered with split skulls, dismembered limbs, and spewing entrails before the enraged accordion's relentless onslaught. I don't know if you're going to count that tiny laugh I just had.
It's up to you. I'll let you decide. Do you want to pass it on to Adam? Adam hasn't gotten to read.
Yeah, I'm going to pass it on now. Adam, please butcher this.
Like, I can't read it. Yeah, see it.
Do your best. Should we give Adam a practice one since it's in his nature to just laugh in general?
Yeah.
You get one free chuckle. No more. No less.
Use it wisely.
Yeah. Is it? We're at the acolyte performing the sacrifice, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The acolyte performing the sacrifice took a vicious blow to the stomach, hands clutching vitals and severed spinal cords as he sprawled over the altar. The disorganized priest lurched over and stagged with split skulls, dismembered limbs, and spewing entrails before the enraged Incordians. We already read that, right? Yeah. The howls of the maimed and dying reverend against the walls of the tiny chamber. A chorus of hell fraught despair as the granite floor ran red with blood. The entire chamber was encompassed in a heat of raw savage butchery as Gravina looks rated in the grips of a primitive, beastly bloody lust. Presently, all went silent, saving.
You have to
Save
pronounce
for
it how it's written.
Yeah, pronounce it as it is written. Do not figure it out.
Yeah.
You lose faster sanity that way.
Save for the Evings groan of the sinking shaman and Gravina's heavy breathing accompanied by several gusty curses. The well had run dry. No more lambs remained for the slaughter.
I think, other than the spelling mistakes right there, that was probably the first decent paragraph he wrote so far.
Yeah.
He actually used the whole well had run dry, no more lambs remain for the slaughter. That's actually some decent writing starting to form right there.
You almost had it. You came so close.
The rampaging stead of death, having taken of Gravina for the moment, left the barbarian free to the exploitation of the other's residuals. Towering over his head was the misshapen image of the cult's hideous deity, Argon.
Aragorn.
Aragorn the Numenorian. How could you?
It's actually Argon, right?
Argon.
Yeah. My brain's like, Argon, there we go. The beings of pure jade was enough to cause the sins of any man to stagger and reel, yet thus was not the case for the behemoth. He had paid only casual notice to this incredible fact, while riveting the whole of his attention upon the jewel protruding from the idol's soul socket. Its masterfully cut faucets imitating blind rays of his hypnotizing beauty. After all, a man cannot sink from a heavily guarded palace while burning down by the intense bulk of a squatting statue, providing, of course, that the idol can even be hefted, in which in fact was beyond the reaches of Gednor's coursing stamina. On the other hand, the jewel, gigantic as it was not a present of a hindrance of any mean concern.
I like how you put this like sinister edge on your voice when you're reading fantasy.
I was gonna say it probably doesn't deserve it, but it makes me think of like the old Dungeon Master's Guide picture with the thief pulling the stone out of the idol.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it just blows me away. if this had come out like 10 years later, I would say that this was super, what's the word? Derivative? Yeah, exactly. But he managed to cliche 4 years before there was a cliche.
I mean, if anything, this is like a cliche amalgamation of just 70s and 60s fantasy.
Yeah. The volume up there. There you go. Help me, please. I can make it well worth your while. Pleaded a soft, anguished, stern voice wafting over Gringo's shoulders as he plucked the dull red emerald from his roots. Turning, Gringo faced the beauty, the female that had lured him into this bloodbath, but whom had become all but forgotten in the heat of battle. He just forgot about the hot babe that he described like the whole
He has
chapter.
like, ooh, shiny things.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, there's tits. Cool.
Yeah. Tits and gold. He ejaculated in the pleasant.
That's your chuckle. That's your chuckle, motherfucker. Yeah. You're on hard mode now. Yeah. No more nets.
I thought that I had seen. Well, if you think about it, ejaculated is just like the best way to make you chuckle, though.
You missed the sluts.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that I'd only seen the last of you at the tavern, but verily, I was mistaken. Gringo advances into the grips of the female's entrancing stares.
So, I have a question. So for anybody that doesn't know what's going on, because this is written like a pile of mud, the plot twist is that this is the same... Maury Magnet, how's it going? Yeah, this is the same girl from the tavern in the very beginning. Josh, how do you feel about that being a plot twist? I, as a writer, feel like that's kind of cheap, personally, because if this were any other medium, if you were actually able to see what was being described, you'd be able to recognize it. But more than one writer has used that I know of, so I don't know. What do you think?
Well, my question is, what purpose does it serve for him to bring back the woman from the tavern? Considering she had like no character development whatsoever and you knew nothing about her.
Excuse me? We were reminded several times that she was hot, okay? We knew everything we needed to know about her according to Jim Ties.
I forgot about the bit about her massive breasts slapping her face at some points.
Page upon page of Japanese homework and need something in your ears to keep yourself sane. I don't know if this will keep you sane, but we're definitely putting something in your ears.
Well, we just read in Japanese, Chaz.
Wrong stream. What level Japanese homework?
Chaz can help you with your homework. He took high school level Japanese.
I took high school level Japanese 1. If you're anywhere beyond that, I probably can't help. And if you're there, you probably know more than I've forgotten. Anyway, Adam, you were in the middle of this.
Severing the golden chains.
That's where it was. Where is it? Golden chains. I just had it. There it goes.
Oh wait, no, I thought we had made it to you ejaculated the accordion in a pleased tone. We're not going to mention that, really? Intermediate Japanese 2040. Yeah, you're way beyond me.
I found it, yes. Greener advanced into the grips of the female's entrancing stare, severing the gold chains that held her captivity upon the altar's highly polished face of ornamental limestone. As Greener lifted the girl from the altar, her arms wound dexterously around his neck.
Just triple jointed fucking arms.
Yeah. And smooth against his harsh exterior. Art thou pleased that we have a chance to meet once again? Getting near immediately, voice in a slight grunt. Is that gonna make like a giggle now?
Okay, I'll take it. Josh, I don't know if you've gotten this far yet. Adam and I, about a paragraph down, we actually have a picture of the woman drawn, and I'm afraid to show it because I would like to have more faith in Twitch that they would recognize something so poorly drawn as tits, but she is technically topless. But holy fuck, is that art bad?
I'll put it in Discord.
Oh, okay, if you want to screenshot it and stick it in Discord, then go for it.
Yeah.
But holy Christ, she has the legs of a 60-year-old man, the torso of several caterpillars, and her face, I can't tell if that's supposed to be eyes or her nose is just that huge. That is egregious.
She has like the face of a troll doll.
All right. Let's see.
Art thou pleased was where we left off.
Art thou pleased that we would have chance to meet once again? Grigner merely voiced a side grunt. The fuck do you sigh and grunt? Just returning the damsel's embrace while she smothered her trim, delicate lips between the coursing protrusions of his reeking maw. So I'm just picturing two snakes fucking right now, just winding around each other, and then doing some weird fucking like sixth-dimensional lit lock.
He's doing what I was told my freshman year of high school in creative writing not to do, or he's doing the art thou pleased, just using archaic language for no reason and then not using it anywhere else.
Yeah, she's the only character that talks like this.
Well, at some points I think he also says, verily, I thought I was mistaken.
Side grunt, returning the damsel's embrace while he smothered her trim, delicate lips between the coursing protrusions of his reeking maw. Let us take leave of this wretched chamber, stated Grignir as he placed the female upon her feet. She swooned a moment, causing Grignir to give her support, then regained her stance.
Just the classic, ugh.
Hey, yeah, so first of all, this guy's still filthy and covered in blood. He clearly has not showered in at least a week that we're aware of. Could be 10 years, who knows, that accordion fucking metabolism. Breath smells like hell, my hero. I mean, I guess when you've got a guy you just kicked in the balls doing this with a hammer in your face, any port in a storm, but Jesus Christ.
I was gonna say, Grignir and accordions have the digestive and sleep cycles of a tardigrade. So they can go long periods of time without food or sleep.
Alright. Art thou able to find your way through the accursed passages of this castle? Mrifk! Every one of these corridors of this damned place are identical. I was at one time a slave of... Wait. Who the fuck is talking? They went into the Earth House! Oh, you... Okay, this guy technically died in, 2002. He died really young, so I don't want to speak ill of the dead. But you asshole! I was at one time a slave of Prince Agaphim. I'm sorry, I just had a mental meltdown for a second, because the servant's name is 2 letters removed. His clammy touch sent a sour swill through my belly, but my efforts reaped a harvest. I gained the pig's liking, whereby he allowed me the freedom of the palace. It was through this means that I eventually managed escape of the palace. It was a simple matter of, to seduce the sentry at the western gate. His trust found him with a dagger thrust his ribs, the wench stated whimsicorically. For a second, I almost thought she was telling Grignir to seduce them. He's such a slut. He'll fuck anything that moves. Just bend over, Grignir. It's been a while. What were you doing at the tavern whence I discovered you? Asked Grignir. He lifted the female through the opening into the mausoleum. Watch out for the trap. I sought to lay low from the palace's guards as they conducted their search for me. The tavern was seldom frequented by the palace guards, and my identity was unknown to the common soldiers. It was through the disturbance that you caused that the palace guards were attracted to the tavern. I was dragged away shortly after you were escorted to the palace. By what are you called by, female? Female!
What you called by female?
Oh man, this one, I don't think I have the oral dexterity for this.
Oh, you laugh, so it's unfortunately my turn to take over.
God damn it, I did. You're right. You take it, my friend.
Carthena, daughter of Mincardos, Duke of Barwego, whose lands border along the northwestern fringes of Gorzum. I was paid as homage to Agaphim upon his 38th year, Hust the Femme, as it is exclamated. And I am called a barbarian, grunted Grignir in a disgusted tone. Aye, the ways of our civilization are in many ways warped and distorted. But what is your calling? She queried, bustily.
What is your calling?
That's why I'm not taking shots, Loneliest One. I'm just constantly refilling my cognac.
I'm almost out of booze.
I'm reading this, I can kind of pick up who he's read. Like, he's very clearly read
Howard.
Robert, and I think he might have read Lovecraft or Poe, judging by the way he is constantly alliterating things.
There's a lot of Appendix N in here. If you squint and look at it upside down, you can, there might be a little bit of Moorcock. I'm not 100% certain.
But the whole civilization is bad and barbarians are good. I'm like, somebody's read Robert E. Howard.
Yeah. Well, clearly, this is a Conan story that they wouldn't publish on the fucking back of a milk carton.
A Conan story that would have been rejected even by Weird Tales. She queried bustily. Grignir of Accordia. I have heard vaguely of Accordia. It is the hill country to the far east of the Norigolian Empire. I have also heard Agaphim curse your land more than once when his troops were routed in the unaccustomed mountains and gorges, saith she.
Now that's a completely different sin, because now the omniscient narrator is doing it.
He's just getting caught up in the way everybody's speaking. Aye, my people are not tarnished by petty luxuries and baubles. They remain fierce and unconquerable in their native climes. After reaching the hidden panel at the end of the stairway, Grignir was at a loss in regard to its operation. His fiercest heaves were as pebbles against the burnished armor. Carthena depressed a small symbol included within the elaborate design upon the panel, whereupon it slowly slid into a cleft in the wall.
I want to say that was where open, sir. Where open, it slowly slid.
My apologies. How did you come to be the victim of these crazed shaman? Quested Grignir as he escorted Carthena through the piles of rummage on the left side of the trap.
Wait, not there. Why? Don't worry about it. Just walk through this garbage. Trust me. The hentai version of the mayor's assistant in Powerpuff Girls. That's probably not too far off, especially since he's never once described her face. I guess blue eyes and really red lips.
She has the aquiline opaque nose, remember?
Oh, the lithe opaque nose. Her nose is thin and dexterous and also slightly see-through.
By Agaphim's orders, I was thrust into a secluded cell to await his passing of sentence. By some means, the priest of Argon acquired a set of keys to the cell. They slew the guard placed over me and abducted me to their chamber, in which you chanced to come upon the Skazitic sacrifice. The Hellspawn cult demands a sacrifice once every 3 moons upon its full journey through the heaven.
How the fuck do you know that? She just boobs, yeah.
They were startled by your unannounced appearance through the fear that you had been sent by Agaphim. The prince would surely have submitted them to the most ghastly of tortures if he had ever discovered their unfaithfulness to Sargon, his bastard deity. Yes, Sargon and Argon, much like Gork and Mork.
So was there a religious war at some point? I'm assuming there was, if these two churches don't get along, where Argon
world building.
Yeah, Argon and Sargon. These people were literally bitching over one letter, and again, Again, there's shades of genius there, but completely lost.
Once again, Chaz, Gork and Mork.
Well, that makes sense given the fucking culture, because orcs are idiots.
Possibly everybody in Gorzim is an idiot.
Jesus Christ.
All the men are idiots and all the women's are just boobs. Many of the partakers of the ritual were high nobles and high trustees of the inner palace. Agathim's pitiless wrath would have been unparalleled. Ah, yes, all these nobles with their fucking fat pot bellies and decaying teeth for some reason, and their skull faces. I assure you the nobles are up to nothing sinister. Take no heed of their appearance. They have no more to fear of Agathim now, bellowed Grignir in a deep, mirthful tone, a gleeful smirk upon his face. I have seen that they were delivered from his vengeance. Engrossed by Carthena's graceful stride and conversation, Grignir failed to take note of the footfalls rapidly approaching behind him. As he swung aside the arched portal linking the chamber with the corridors beyond, a mad and bloodlusting screech reverberated from his eardrums. Seemingly utilizing the speed of thought, Grignir swiveled to face his unknown foe. With gaping eyes and widened jaws, Grignir raised his axe above his surly mane, but he was too late.
Mazzy, I do want to point out that at one point a professional writer did rewrite this. I have no idea if it's any better. I've never read it or touched it, but he did basically rewrite the Eye of Argon and change a few things. So it's been worked on.
The women now have faces and one facet of personality. A whole 200% more from what they had before. I'm going to pass the torch now for Chapter 7. It's a little short. Somebody else can read it.
All right. Go ahead and take it, Adam.
Right. With the wobbling knees and swimming head, the priest that had lapsed into an epidemically...
God damn it, Adam!
Pass it, Adam. You left.
Yeah. I can't even do... Yeah. I fucked over my own spelling of things.
With wobbling knees and swimming head, the priest that had lapsed into an epileptic seizure rose unsteadily to his feet. While enacting his choking fit in writhing agony, the shaman was overlooked by Grignir. The barbarian had mistaken the seizure for the death throes of the acolyte, allowing the priest to avoid his stinging blade. How fucking dumb is Grignir? It's just, he's dead. I guess I'll just keep disemboweling everyone else here.
The sight.
Thank you. The sight that met the priest's inflamed eyes nearly served to sprawl him upon the floor once more. The sacrificial sat in grim, blood-spattered silence all around him, broken only by the occasional yelps and howls of his maimed and butchered fellows. Above his head rose the hideous idol, its empty socket holding the shaman's furbished, infuriated gaze. His eyes turned to a stony glaze, with the realization of the pillage and blasphemy. Due to his high susceptibility following the seizure that he faked, the priest was transformed into a raving maniac bent solely upon wreaking vengeance. With lips curled and quivering, a crust of foam dripping from them, the acolyte drew a long, wicked-looking, jewel-hilted scimitar from his silver girdle and fled through the aperture in the ceiling, uttering a faintly perceptible ceremonial gibberish. Josh, chapter 7.5. Josh, have you ever seen half chapters in any other work of fiction?
Absolutely not. It's some sort of like post-modern stroke of genius, I'm assuming.
It's inventive. He's trying to...
It's like I'm reading like Thomas Pynchon or David Foster Wallace or something.
A sweeping scimitar swung towards Grignir's head in a shadowed blur of motion. With axe raised over his head, Grignir prepared to parry the blow, while gaping wide-eyed in open-mouthed perplexity. Suddenly, a sharp snap resounded behind the frothing shaman. The scimitar, halfway through its fatal sweep, dropped from a quivering, nerveless hand, clattering harmlessly to the stonage. Cutting his screech short with a bubbling, red-mouthed gurgle, the lacerated acolyte staggered under the pressure of the released springboard. After a moment of hopeless struggling, the shaman buckled, sprawling face down in a widening pool of blood and entrails, his regal purple robe blending enhancingly with the swirling streams of crimson. "Mrifk! I thought I had laid the last of those dogs," muttered Grignir in a half-apathetic state. "Killed! I thought I had killed the last of those dogs. Why did I read laid? His Freudian shit is just flooding. Like, couple paragraph chapters.
No, he's saying like how is it?
Oh,
Formatted like it literally says chapter 7.5.
like I said at the very beginning, if you missed it, this story is widely available online. So if you want to see it for yourself or just follow along, you can just Google it. "Nay, Grignir, you doubtless grew careless while giving vent to your lusts. But let us not tarry any long lest we overtax the fates. The paths leading to freedom will soon be barred."
Hey, he forgot the end of the.
Oh, muttered Grignir in a half-apathetic state. "Mrifk, I thought I'd... How do you half care about something? I thought I killed the last of those dogs. Thanks, Trap." Which, by the way, she had no idea was there. You think you could have died for a second would shock you a little bit. Nah, you just checking out my rockin' boobage, man. It happens. I go through this like once a week.
He was distracted, Chad. He was distracted.
"The wretch's cries must certainly have attracted unwanted attention," the wench mused. "By what direction shall we pursue our flight?" "Up that stair and down the corridor a short distance is the concealed entrance to a tunnel seldom used by others than the prince, and known by few others save the palace's royalty. It is used mainly by the prince when he wishes to take leave of the palace in secret. It is not always in the prince's best interest to leave his chateau in public view. Even while under heavy guard, he is often assaulted by hurtling stones and rotting fruits." Who? This guy just religiously just sends people to the fucking mines or kills them willy-nilly, clearly, for killing one of his dudes. But just, yeah, a common occurrence. Never mind. I don't give a fuck. I am thinking about the Eye of Argon too hard, and that is the truest sense of my faltering sanity.
What we have to do is do a deep dive on it, dissect every little piece, try to make it sound smart.
"The commoners have little love for her," lectured the Nera lady. I guess that's a word. "It is amazing that they would ever have left a pig like him become their ruler. I should imagine that his people would rise up and crucify him like the dog he is." I don't know how you crucify a dog. That's like
who's out here crucifying dogs?
that's a fucking hashtag fucking crucifix. I'll say that. "Alas, Grignir, it is not as simple as all that. His soldiers are well paid by him. So long as he keeps their wages up, they will carry out his damned wished. The crude implements of the common folk would never stand up under an onslaught of forged blades and protective armor. They would be going to be their own slaughter," stated Carthena to a confused but angered Grignir as they topped the stairway. "Yet how can they bear to live under such oppression? I would sooner die beneath the sword than live under such a dog's command." You literally made the opposite choice 5 paragraphs ago, Grignir. Shut the fuck up. Added Grignir as the pair stalked down the hall in the direction opposite that which Grignir had come. "But all men are not of the same mold that you are born of. They choose to live as they are so as to save their filthy necks from the chopping block," returned Carthena in a disgusted tone as she cast a pieced glance toward the stalwart figure at her side, whose left arm was wound dexterously about her slim waist, his slowly waning torch casting their images in intermingling wisps as it dangled from his left hand. Just again.
What an awkward way to walk with somebody with your hand around their waist. Like, I know it's like a romantic thing to do, but you're trying to escape a dungeon. That isn't the best place to have it.
Loneliest, so what's going on is there's a small delay on Twitch just as a feature, so if you're like streaming Hearthstone or something, it's harder to stream snipe you. So yeah, what goes on in chat you're not going to see here until Twitch catches up. Presently, Carthena came upon the panel, concealed amongst the other granite slabs and discernible only by the burned-out cresset above it. As I pushed the cresset aside, pushed the panel inwards, Katerina motioned to the panel she was referring to and twisted the cresset in a counterclockwise motion. Grignir braced his right shoulder against the walling, concentrating the force of his bulk against it. The slab gradually swung inward with a slight grating sound. Carthena stooped beneath Grignir's corded arms and crawled upon all fours into the passage beyond. Grignir followed after easing the slab back into place. Also, at no point has this woman acquired clothes. Granted, the maimed dudes in the fucking thing are just covered in blood. Not the best choice. However, assuming that she's making out with a barbarian that's just literally littered this fucking place with corpses, assuming that's not an issue. Winding before the pair was a dark... I'm tapping out, man. I'm playing on survival mode, man. Josh, take it. It's impossible to convey this. I'm sure it seems like an exaggeration. I literally feel lightheaded.
Winding before the pair was a dark, musty tunnel, exhibiting tangled spiderwebs from its ceiling to wall and an oozing, sickly slime running lazily upon its floor. Hanging upon the chipped wall upon Grignir's right side was a half-molded corpse, its gray, flacking arms held in place by rusted iron manacles. Carthena flinched back into Grignir's arms at sight of the leering set in an ugly, distorted grimace, staring horribly at her from the hollow, gaping sockets. This alcove must be used by Agathim as a torture chamber. I wonder how many of his enemies have disappeared into these haunts, never to be heard from again, pondered the hulking brute. Let us flee before we are caught within Agathim's ghastly clutches. The exit from this tunnel cannot be very far from here, said Carthena with a slight sob to her voice as she sagged in Grimnir's encompassing embrace. Aye, it will be best to be finished with this corridor as soon as it is possible. But why do you flinch from the sight of death so? Rift! You have seen so much death this day without exhibiting such emotions, exclaimed Grignir as he had led her trembling form along the dingy confines.
Hey, Jim. It's mentioning your plot hole does not make it not a plot hole.
The man hanging from the wall was Doyanta. He had committed the folly of showing affections for me in front of Agathim. He never meant any harm by his actions. At this, Carthena broke into a slow, steady whimpering, choking her voice with gasping sobs. There was never anything between us, yet Agathim did this to him. The beast! May the demons of hell's deepest haunts claw away at his wretched flesh for his merciless act, she prayed. I detect that you felt more for this fellow than you wished to let on, but enough of this. We can talk of such matters after we are once more free to do so.
Several questions. Fuck no, we stop right there. Several questions. Number one, she recognized the half-moldering corpse with the distorted grimace. And number two, Grignir the barbarian is literally getting jealous of a rotting corpse hanging on the wall in the middle of a dungeon. Torture chamber.
Chaz, written by a 16-year-old. Just 16-year-old Grignir looking at this woman's like, you fucking bitch, you still have feelings for him?
I thought we had something special in the 5 seconds since I almost raped you at the bar. That will kill people, loneliest one. I'm sorry, continue. Jeez.
With this, Grignir lifted the grieved female to her feet and strode onward down the corridor, supporting the bulk of her weight with the surging left arm. Presently, a dim light was perceptibly filtering into the tunnel, casting a dim reddish hue upon the moldy wall of the passage's grim confines. Carthena had ceased her whimpering and partially regained her composure. The tunnel's end must be nearing. Rays of sunlight are beginning to seep into... Grignir clammied his right hand over Carthena's mouth and with a slight struggle pulled her over to the shadows at the right hand of wall of the path, while at the same time thrusting his torch beneath an overhanging stone to smother its flickering rays. Be silent. I can hear footfalls approaching through the tunnel, growled Grignir in a hushed tone. All that you hear are the horses corralled at the far end of the tunnel. That is a further sign that we are nearing our goal, she stated. All that you hear is less than I hear. I heard footsteps coming towards us. Silence yourself that we may find out whom we are being brought into contact with. I doubt that any would have thought as yet of searching this passage for us. The advantage of surprise will be upon our side, Grignir warned. Carthena cast her eyes downward and ceased any further pursuit towards conversation, an irritating habit in which she had gained an amazing proficiency. I don't know if you count that laughing or not.
I don't know, Adam, what do you think?
I didn't hear it. I just heard Chaz laughing, but I didn't hear it.
Oh,
Keep going. We're so close to the end.
Go ahead. His boobs like a new player.
I was gonna say just the God, this annoying women, right, guys? This annoying woman looking down when you're not talking to her. It's like, what the fuck is this? Two figures came into the pair's view from around a turn in the tunnel. They were clothed in rich, luxuriant silks and rambling on in conversation, while ignorant of their crouching foes waiting in an ambush ahead. That barbarian dog is cringing beneath the weight of the lash at this moment, sire. He shall cause no more disturbance. Aye, and so it is with any who dare to cross the path of Sargon's chosen ones, said the second man. But the peasants are showing signs of growing unrest. They complain that they cannot feed their families while burdened with your taxes. I shall teach those sluts the meaning of humility. Order an immediate increase upon the taxes. They dare to question my sovereign authority? Ha! They shall soon learn what true oppression can be. I will. A show-dowered bulk leapt from behind a jutting promontory as it brought down a double-edged axe with the speed of a striking thought. One of the nobles sagged lifeless to the ground, skull split to the teeth. Grignir gasped as he observed the bisected face set in its leering death agonies. It was Agathon. The dead man's comrade, having recovered from his shock, drew a jewel-encrusted dagger from beneath the folds of his robe and lunged towards the barbarian's back.
Didn't he kill Agathon in chapter 2?
I don't think so.
No, because there's Agathon, right, the noble, and then there was Agathon, the advisor, that got shanked.
Oh yeah, he might have killed this guy already.
Yeah, he did like the Super Mario jump over both of them and landed with a sword up his butt.
It was just a flesh wound.
Grignir spun at the sound from behind and smashed down his crimsoned axe once more. His antagonist lunged, howling, to a stream of stagnant green water, grasping a spouting stump that had once been a wrist. Grignir raised his axe over his head and prepared to finish the incomplete job, but it was deterred halfway through his lunge by a frenzied screech from behind. Carthena leapt to the head of the writhing figure, plunging a smoldering torch into the agonized face. The howls increased in the horde, intensely stifled by the sizzling of roasting flesh, then died down until the man was reduced to a blubbering mass of squirming, insensate flesh. Grignir advanced to Carthena's side, wincing slightly from the putrid aroma of charred flesh that rose in a puff of thick white smog throughout the chamber. Carthena reeled slightly, staring dazedly downward at her gruesome handiwork. I had to do it. It was Agathon. I had to, she exclaimed.
See, I told you, Agathon and Agathon are two different people, like Sargon and Argon.
Sargon should be more careful of his right-hand men, added Grignir, a smug grin upon his lips. But to hell with Sargon for now. The stench is becoming bothersome to me. With that, Grignir grasped Carthena around the waist, leading her to the bend in the cave and into the open. A ball of feral red was rising through the mist of the eastern horizon, dissipating the slinking shadows of the night. A corral stood before the pair, enclosing two grazing mares. Grignir reached into a weighted-down leather pouch dangling at his side and drew forth the scintillating red emerald he had obtained from the bloated idol.
Where the fuck did he get the pouch? He had a loincloth and a sword when he went in.
His loincloth doubles as a pouch.
Ah. you just gotta tie it a certain way and it's just one big pocket.
Raising it toward the sun, he said, "We shall do well with Bobble, eh?" Carthena gaped at the gem, gasping in a terrified manner. "The Eye of Argon! Oh, Kala!" At this, the gem gave off a blinding glow, then dribbled through Grigna's fingers in a slimy red ooze.
I'm assuming Kala is another deity. So I wanna point out he gave a unique name to this god that just gets mentioned in a swear word once, but we have to sit here with Sargon and Argon for half the fucking thing.
Grignia stepped back, pushing Carthena behind him. The droplets of slime slowly converged into a pulsating jelly-like mass. A single opening transfixed the blob, forming into a leech-like maw. Then the hideous transgressor of nature flopped toward Grignia, a trail of greenish slime lingering behind it. The single gap puckered repeatedly, emitting a ghastly sucking sound. Grignia spread his legs into a battle stance, steeling his quivering thews for a battle royale with a thing he knew not how to fight. Carthena wound her arms around the protector's neck, mumbling, "Kill it! Kill!" while her entire body trembled. The thing was almost upon Grignia when he buried his axe into the grisly maw. It passed through the blob and clanged upon the ground. Grignia drew his axe back with a film of yellow-green slime clinging to the blade. The thing was seemingly unaffected. Then it started to sluice up his leg. The hairs upon his nape stood on the end of the slimy feel of the thing's bully bulk. The now-tiss sucking sound became louder, and Grignia felt the blood being drawn from his body. With each hiss of hideous puck of the thing increased in size. Grignia shook his foot about madly and attempted to dislodge the blob, but it clung like a leech, still feeding upon his rapidly draining life fluid. He grasped with his hands, trying to rip it off, but only found his hands entangled in a sickly glue-like substance. The slimy thing continued its puckering, now having grown the size of Grignia's leg from its vampiric feast. Grignia began to reel and stagger under the blob, his chalk-white face and faltering muscles attesting to the gigantic loss of blood. Carthena slipped from Grignia in a death-like faint, a morrow chilling scream upon her red rubish lips. In final desperation, Grignia grasped the smoldering torch upon the ground and plunged it into the reeking maw of the travesty. A shudder passed through the thing. Grignia felt the blackness closing upon his eyes, but held it on the last ebb of his rapidly waning vitality. He could feel its grip lessening as a hideous gurgling sound erupted from the writhing maw. The jelly-like mass began to bubble like a vat of boiling tar as quivers passed up and down its entire form.
1970. Does yours continue past then?
Mine does, but supposedly that's the end of the story, so everybody go home. That's it.
Well, okay, so the story is the version of the Eye of Argon that was originally circled around the circles that did this was missing its ending. And apparently this is it. Like, I have the ending here. I can take it if you want. It's like 3 paragraphs.
Go ahead, Chaz.
Okay, we're gonna do this. All right, we're not gonna have anybody come back and ask, "You didn't finish the story." No, we're not going in this trench more than once.
We can read it together. No, they get even harder.
I don't think it's becoming more cognizant. I think you're just getting used to it.
Yeah.
Try reading it out loud. It builds on you. With a sloshing plop, the lost ending. With a sloshing plop, the thing fell to the ground, evaporating in a thick scarlet cloud, until it reattained its original size. It remained thus for a moment, as the puckered red maw took the shape of a protruding red eyeball, the pupa of which seemed to unravel before it the tale of creation. What the fuck does that even describe? How a shapeless mass slithered from the quagmires of the stigmatic pool of time, only to degenerate into a leprosy of avaricious lust. In that fleeting moment, the grim mystery of life was revealed before Grignir's ensnared gaze. How? The eyeball's glare turned to a sudden plea of mercy. A plea for the whole of humanity. Okay, this ending's taking the piss. I don't believe this is the end at all. Then the blob began to quiver with violent convulsions. The eyeball shattered into 1,000 tiny fragments and evaporated in a curling wisp of scarlet mist. The very ground below the thing began to vibrate and swallow it up with a blech. The thing was gone forever. All that remained was a dark red blotch upon the face of the earth, blotching things up. Shaking his head, his shaggy mane to clear the jumbled fragments of his mind, Grignir tossed the limp female over his shoulder. Let's go, woman. We're done. Mounting... Huh? Oh, yeah.
Time for the sex, woman. I will twist your nipples and bring them to my own.
Mounting one of the disgruntled mares and leading the other, the weary, scarred barbarian trooted slowly off into the horizon to become a tiny pinpoint in a filtered file of swirling blue mists, leaving the nobles, soldiers, and peasants to replace the missing monarch. Long live the king.
I believe that's Leave the King.
Long Live the King by Jim Thies, winner of the J.T. Rickosh Award for Excellence. Adam, would you like to read the transcriber's note for us, please?
Good morning, Vasil.
Vasil, how's it going?
Hello, Vasil. Long time no see. Or no see me, I guess. Besides the last time you saw me.
Loneliest one knowing the beginning does not help whatsoever.
Right? It just feels incomplete.
No mere transcription can give the true flavor of the original printing of the Eye of Argon. It was mimographed with stencils cut on a elite manual typewriter. Many letters were so faint as to be barely readable. Others were overstuck, and some were... Wait, if it went out... Oh, damn it.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah. Where was I?
And some that were to be removed.
Yeah, and some that were removed never got painted out with corrected fluids. Usually, only one space-separated sentences, while paragraphs were separated by blank line and were indented 10 spaces. Many words were grotesquely hyphenated, and there were illustrations. I cannot do them justice in mere words, but they were a match for this text. There were major losses of this version. Number 2 of T.E. Oh, yeah.
The Eye of Argon.
Yeah.
Take the boobs and go.
Yeah. Otherwise, all the effort had been made to retain the full and correct text, reserving even misspellings and drop spaces. An excellent proofreader.
I liked what they did right there with the misspellings.
Yeah.
I see it.
They put MIS-spellings.
An excellent proofreader has checked it for errors both omitted and committed. What mismatches remain are mine. I shall endeavor to keep a copy of the original in a waiting. I will endeavor to make a copy of the original available for viewing, so it may be appreciated in its fullness. But as a labor of love for those third-generation copies have now succumbed to the bitter vicissitudes of time and entropy, worn away by the ravage of countless rereadings before entrailed audiences. Yet who have found that the heat flavor of its stylistic paragraphs has seeped into their soul and still grips it with the Fareed grasp. I dedicate this machine-readable version of the intimate Eye of Argon.
Okay, so Josh, as the resident literary scholar, hit us with some literary analysis on this.
And do a hentai. Yeah.
As I said before, what seems very noticeable to me is obviously there's the fixation on breasts. So this is very clearly a story that uses the facsimile or the artifice of a fantasy story to explore, like, I guess, violent struggles that most teenagers seem to to comprehend with, you have the idea of the false leader, perhaps a stand-in for a bad father figure. If you're looking at this from like a Freudian psychology sort of point of view, or you're using the text as a means of analyzing the author rather than analyzing the text itself. And like I said, there's a lot of elements of sexual development, but it seems as though the author themselves does not know how sex is conducted. Yet you see a lot of phallic and yonic imagery with the just the way things are phrased. It almost always seems like a penis going into a vagina if you look at it in a certain way. So that's what I would say. You're looking at a story where it's not only a developing writer who is using the pastiche as well as just the tropes of the early fantasy genre to try to make their own story, and accidentally showing a fixation on elements of their own sexual identity being developed while still having to cope with what they themselves have is just a lack of information on the actual reproductive act.
It never fails to very truly thoroughly impress me how you are able to glean deep meaning from just anything we fucking read. All right. I mean, that's it. We've been here for 2.5 hours. You all sat through one of the worst fantasy stories ever written. Congratulations. I don't know. I don't know what to say here. I guess
We're still waiting for the sequel?
the sequel.
So what's going to happen is Chaz is going to take the story and he's going to memorize it, and he's going to create a Dungeon Crawl Classics adventure.
Dude, no shit. I was thinking this would be like really fun to turn into a module and take to conventions.
I present to you the DCC RPG version of The Eye of Argon.
Like, that would be amazing, and you know it. Like, I don't know how to make this like expanded to a huge party and also not as railroady, but I'm sure there's ways to do it.
I mean, you're gonna have to come up with a whole dungeon, obviously. The story's gonna probably start with if this is a funnel, you would start off with the characters being imprisoned by Agrafin, and then have them start off with the escaping the dungeon, either by like the rats revealing some kind of means of unknown escape, or doing the whole waiting for the guards and using that as a means of escape.
Yeah, I was thinking that definitely you could do something with the rat, but fuck if I know.
Yeah, and obviously what you're going to do is you either run this as a level 1 adventure with like a very simple write-up of the world of Gorzim. Like, you already have, 3 deities? You have Kiel or whatever, you have Argon and Sargon. There's some kind of religious conflict going on. You have a
the Eye of Argon campaign setting.
About time.
I think I think at some point I have to do that. I have to like turn this into a module. I don't think I'd ever like sell it on DriveThruRPG because it's not my thing. But just for the meme, I just release it for free, like downloadable on Google Drive or something.
Do it. Create it before Gen Con. Submit it to Goodman Games. I don't want to sell this. Can you just please put this up on your website to give away for free? Also, please let me run this in your room at Gen Con.
Swear words, apparently.
What do these gods rule over? Probably jewels. Jewel-encrusted scimitars. Huge boobs. Halitosis, that got brought up a lot. People's bad breath. But like I said, there are the inklings of something interesting here. Obviously, we took the piss out of this story. It was written by a 16-year-old. You can't expect literary genius. But to be fair, people like Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein at the age of 18, and I'm pretty sure the woman who wrote The Outsiders also wrote that when she was 16 or 17. Age isn't an excuse to be a bad writer. Also, you shouldn't be expected to be a good writer at that age either, but that's neither here nor there. There are the inklings of something interesting here.
I agree with that. There's really good ideas that are not fully executed. Adam, do you have anything to say for the short portion you were here for?
Not particularly.
All right. All right, so real quick, again, this is not our usual shtick, but if you enjoyed us, there's always a like, a follow, a subscribe that you can do. We have social media down below if you want to keep track of what we're streaming and when. If you really, really like us, we have a Patreon where we use it to do stuff like get books, pay for our SoundCloud, stuff like that. And if you want to see if I can do any better as a writer, ChazLabelle.com, where I'm currently publishing my web serial novel, Litany of Fire Apostate, absolutely free. ChazLebel.com. Should be a link somewhere. I think I have to add one to the Twitch, but there should be one on YouTube. So just boom, boom, there. I'm done here. Anything you guys want to say?
Thanks for sticking around, especially those of you who aren't usually here.
Yeah, thanks for the new guys coming. We appreciate you.
May Argon and Sargon bless you.
Please do this again. So I guess I should ask, did you guys have fun?
I thought it was fun.
It was interesting. Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah.
Because I'm telling you, if we're ever short on people again, I'm down to do this again. Mazzy, just giant hugs. Giant hugs. I appreciate you. What was Boobs' name? Carthena. It's Mrs. Boobs to you.
Dr. Boobs.
That is
he has an education.
So my vote, we should have one waiting in the wings, and we don't have to decide now. But my vote is for My Immortal. It's so bad. It is so bad. It will make you want to punch yourself, but that's why it's glorious.
My vote the only one I could think of was the original Mary Sue, which was the fan fiction written by the woman named Mary Sue, who wrote a fan fiction about her being courted and romanced by Spock and Captain Kirk, which is where we get the word Mary Sue from.
I'm 100% down if we can find a copy of it.
What about the tales of what was his name? Chris Chan.
Oh, you're talking about Sonichu?
Yes. Just like
I'll fucking do Sonichu. That's a whole snother sub basement of insanity. But if you guys want, the quickie is out there. We can do Sonichu, and we'll get fucking views. We will get fucking views. Any random channel can put Chris Chan in a video and get 1,000 views. I'm convinced of it. Fuck it, I'm down. All right, we'll decide exactly what we're gonna do. No promises. But yeah, I had fun. Thank you guys for doing this with me. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Adam. We appreciate having you back. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around and watching. Good night.
You guys will see me next week, probably.
Woo! More Adam.
Yeah.
We appreciate it, Sanitarium. Thank you. You are awesome. All right. Good night, everybody. We're out.